ẹlẹ́kẹ̀ẹ́ta màrí o Èkó Èkó mo pè ọ́ o Èkó ẹ̀mẹ́ta là pàjé ẹ̀mẹ́ta là gbòǹkàn ẹsẹ̀ mẹ́ta ń tàgbó ẹ̀mẹ́ta là porí bàbá ẹni lójú àgàn Èkó Èkó mo pè ọ́ o Èkó ọmọ aládé olókun ọmọ aṣọ̀dẹ̀dẹ̀ sọ́sà Èkó fìgẹ́ gbàkọ́lé ìlẹ̀kẹ̀ sílé olókun ṣẹ̀rí adé àwọn ọlọ́gbọ́n wọn ò ta kókó omi séjì aṣọ òmọ̀ràn kan kò ká yẹ̀pẹ̀ ilẹ̀ àwọn alárìnká wọn ò rìn ká débi ilẹ̀ kẹ̀tù sí ọ̀bẹ tó mú kò gbẹ́ ìkú ara ẹ̀ ó dé fá fún orúkọ tán tí ń ṣàbíkẹ́yìn wọn léńje wọn ládẹni àgbésìn ìyá Èkó dẹni àgbésìn Èkó Èkó mo pè ọ́ o Èkó. Èkó ń gbóná fún mẹ̀kúnnù Èkó ń tutù fólówó Èkó ń gbóná fún mẹ̀kúnnù Èkó ń tutù fólówó oúnjẹ wọn ò lè kó gàrí wọn ò lè kó iṣu wọn ò lè kó òróró wọn ò lè kó oúnjẹ wọn ò lè kó èlùbọ́ wọn ò lè kó kí lọ́lọ́mọ mẹ́fà yóò fi bọ́ lẹ́kọ́ kí láláyà mẹ́fà yóò fi bọ́ lẹ́kọ́ àwọn tí ò ní ṣe ń kọ́ ẹjẹ́ abẹ́ Olúwa torí Olúwa mi kò ní tèbi payé rẹ̀ torí Olúwa tí kò ní pa mẹ̀kúnnù sáyé òun lolúwa o adá tèmi sí rẹ̀ o. Èkó ń gbóná fún mẹ̀kúnnù Èkó ń tutù fólówó Èkó ń gbóná fún mẹ̀kúnnù Èkó ń tutù fólówó ilé wọn ò lè kó iṣẹ́ wọn ò lè kó ilé wọn ò lè kó ìsọ̀ wọn ò lè kó ṣọ́ọ̀bù wọn ò lè kó kí lọ́lọ́mọ mẹ́fà yóò fi bọ́ lè kó oúnjẹ wọn ò lè kó kí láláyà mẹ́fà yóò fi bọ́ lè kó àwọn tí ò ní ṣe ń kọ́ ẹjẹ́ abẹ́ Olúwa torí Olúwa mi kò ní fèbí payé rẹ̀ torí Olúwa tí kò ní pa mẹ̀kúnnù sáyé òun lolúwa òun lálágbàálẹ̀ o òun lolúwa o adá tèmi sí rẹ̀ o. Èkó ní kankan ó kárí ìlú gbogbo ẹ bá mi ká lọ ẹ tẹ̀lé mi ká lọ Ìbàdàn. Ẹ tẹ̀lé mi ká lọ Odòkè Ọya. Ní Kaduna, Kano, Zaria.
Radio National Anthem.
Níbi ní Warri Sábẹ́lẹ̀.
Radio National Anthem, please.
Ẹlúgbò títí dé Ọ̀ṣọ́ṣà.
Radio National Anthem. Mr. Thomas, national anthem.
Agbọ́dì mẹ̀kúnnù, èwo ni tẹ̀yìn olówó, ọgbọ̀n náírà ò tó ṣe lá.
National anthem.
Ladies and gentlemen, the national anthem of the newly formed Ududuwa Nation. Akọ́dá ìbà ilé ni o, aṣẹ̀dá ìbà ilé ni o, igun mẹ́rin ayé mojúbà o, ẹ jẹ́ kí bà mí kó ṣẹ o. Èmi ni Èrèlú Túnwàṣẹ, Èrèlú Àjíún, èmi lọ́lọ́jà ẹ̀yẹ. It's another day on this program known as Àgbà Kò Ní Tán Nílẹ̀ Oòduà. My favorite lady, Her Royal Highness Princess Moradin, will say, our elders shall never diminish. I will say, there will never be a day when we no longer have elders in Yoruba land. Many people think elders are by virtue of age. The answer is no. Age is not what makes you an elder. You can be an elder because you have wisdom. You can be an elder because you have found yourself even as the first child within a family. You may even be just 9 years old. In that position, you are an elder. So welcome to Àgbà Kò Ní Tán Nílẹ̀ Oòduà. Let me explain the objective behind Àgbà Kò Ní Tán Nílẹ̀ Oòduà. As you very well know, the land of Oduduwa is geographically with the headquarters within Nigeria, but it has spread widely to many parts of the world, including Brazil, Cuba, the Caribbean, Republic of Benin, etc., etc. One thing that is quite common amongst the descendants of a person, the progenitor, our founding, shall I say, our ancestral father, Oduduwa. One thing that's quite common amongst his descendants seems to be conflict and misunderstanding. Just put 2 or 3 Yorubas together, be it on WhatsApp, be it on the street, wherever they are. Just give them 15 minutes. They are competing with one another. They are finding reasons to disagree. So, Agbakonitoni Oduduwa seeks to reduce misunderstanding. Cannot eradicate, but reduce. In order to promote understanding and to prevent conflict, in order to be able to facilitate effective conflict resolution, so that some kind of forgiveness comes in. When you hear the word forgiveness, some people think you are talking about Christianity or Islam. It's got nothing to do with religion. It's got to do with nature. That forgiveness happens naturally. It's been around before any religion and shall be with us forever. Eternally, shall I say. So, why do we need all of this? If you come across descendants of Oduduwa, wherever they are, Ishokan Oduwa, Ishokan, unity, unity, unity. There will be shouting unity wherever you might, anywhere Ishokan, meaning we are not speaking with one voice. I always wonder what on earth they are talking about. How can you Ishokan when at the end of the day, you can not even coexist constructively? Look at many organizations all over the world. Point to one organization where you've got harmony. Before you call, I always use this Jack Robinson, they have split into 2. If you've just joined me, this is Agbakonitoni Oduwa. It's a program that has been inspired by Ifa. You know, they say, there are many of us, we don't copy people. We do what we are inspired to do and feel comfortable being followed. That doesn't necessarily say one is a leader. It means one is able to lead by example. So Agbakonitoni Oduduwa, many will say Ashe, it's prayer. Every episode brings in those that we call witnesses, those with knowledge, those with expertise, to share with us. And it means, when I use the word witnesses and evidence, it operates like a court. A court, yes, it operates like a court. In my Zoom area, members, one can refer to as the jury or commentators, will walk in. I don't generally want many, I only want a few. Those who have been divinely called to contribute. So when the speakers share their thoughts, focusing on the subject, all commentators must not bring in any other issues not included in the contents presented by the speaker. Wọ́n tó gbàgbà sùn lọ́yẹ̀ ni. Mi kì í gbé ẹnikẹ́ni láàyè kó máa wá lọ wọn nífun àbí kó máa ṣe àbí gẹ́gẹ́ báwọn Yorùbá ti ń ṣe tẹ́ bá ti gbé wọn jókòó. Nítorí jẹ́ pòfẹ́sọ̀ kínní kan. Wọ́n á rò pé ẹni tí ò lọ sí sùkúù, wọ́n á rò pé kò sọgbọ́n lórí ẹ̀. Ìwé èbó nìkan kọ́ ló sọ ẹ́ di ọlọ́gbọ́n. Kódà mi ti ráyè fún. Torí pé òun ló dá wàhálà sílẹ̀ ilé ayé wa tá a rojú tú ẹ̀. Oh, Enyomi, if you happen to be on the Facebook, mo kí kú kalẹ̀ ṣe dáadáa lẹ̀ ń bẹ. Àjíǹde ara máa jẹ́ gbogbo wa. Bẹ́ẹ̀ bá ń bẹ lórí YouTube kan náà ń pè. Mo kí yín, ẹ ṣeun tí ẹ darapọ̀ mọ́ wa lónìí láti wá jókòó níkàlẹ̀ wá gbọ́ ohun tí àlejò mi tòní tó máa fi yé wa. Wọ́n ní gbogbo ohun tí èèyàn bá sọ lẹ́nu ẹ jẹ́ kí ó máa ẹ jẹ́ kó máa wo etí wa tó lọ́jọ́ kan á wúlò. Yorùbá kì í farabalẹ̀ wọn kì í fẹ́ gbọ́ra wọn yé ó dàbí tán bá gbọ́ bẹ̀ sí orí iná ni wọn ò ní ròdé sàlẹ̀ torí pé bẹ́ẹ̀ nìyẹn bá ti ń sọ̀rọ̀ náà ti máa ronú bí wọ́n ṣe fẹ́ sọ jù lọ. Olódùmarè kó ṣàánú wa o kó jẹ́ kí èdè wa kó yédè tó. Ǹjẹ́ kí ni kókó ìjókòó yìí? Láti dẹ́kun èdè àìyedè ni ká máa gbé àwọn àlejò tí wọ́n lè gbìyànjú tó máa ṣàlàyé àwọn ọ̀rọ̀ fún wa tó jẹ́ wípé nígbà tá a bá wà pẹ̀lú àwọn Yorùbá ẹgbẹ́ wa a lè máa dẹ́kun èdè àìyedè tó. Kí ni tá a wá fẹ́ rí sọ lónìí? Tá a fẹ́ sọ lónìí ó ní à ń pè ní ohun rẹ̀ àkọlé náà rẹ̀ wọ́n ní ta ni Yorùbá gan ta ló ń jẹ́ Yorùbá? Who is a Yorùbá? Ta ló ń pè Yorùbá? Ṣé tó bá ti gbé tó bá tiẹ̀ wá sọ tó ń wọ̀ láyé ìsìn èmi ìraṣọ Yorùbá tó ń wọ̀ níbẹ̀ o àwọn obìnrin yẹn wọ́n á wọ gáùn bíi Madam Cinderella wọn láwọn Yorùbá. Ṣé yẹn ló ṣe wọ́n Yorùbá? Ṣé torí wọn wá wọ bùbá àtìró bíi tèmi àjím ṣé wọn kì í ṣe Yorùbá ni? Tẹ bá bẹ́ẹ̀ lómi lálejò Indomie ló máa gbé kalẹ̀ fún yín. Tẹ bá lè fẹ́ jàmàlà ẹ̀nírámọ́là adẹ lóhun Yorùbá. Who is a Yorùbá la fẹ́ sọ lẹ́ni o. Táwa lálejò mi gan-an àlejò mi náà ń bẹ̀ ń kalẹ̀. If you've just joined me, welcome. It's wonderful to have you join me. Today we shall be exploring one word, Yorùbá. Kí ló ń jẹ́ Yorùbá? Àlejò mi yìí èèyàn tí mo rántí jọ́ tí kọ́kọ́ máa pàdé ẹ̀ mo bá rúrúkọ náà olóhùn àbá mo ní bóyá Ghana lọkùnrin yìí kí ló wá ń wá lórí àpèrè mi Yorùbá àbá kẹ̀ kí ló ń jábá mo tún wọ orúkọ kejì wọn láwọn mo ti rò pé Kristolu náà wọn láwọn àṣẹ Kristi lólú ni mo ní kí ni mo kàn yìí ṣùgbọ́n arákùnrin wa yìí ẹni tẹ bá lè wọ ọmọlúàbí. This is a gentleman to the core, very patient, very humble, has worked hard in his life, has achieved so much that unless he tells you, you wouldn't know. So you can see it's quite unique and unusual. Because kí Yorùbá tiẹ̀ tó máa jẹ́ security guard ní Bank of England, kò ní jẹ́ gbádùn. Yorùbá a máa sọ fún yín pé a máa fọ olùsọyà ní pé ṣé mo pé òun ní Bank of England security òun lòún ṣọ́ ilé owó fún Queen Elizabeth. Èrò àti bà yín pé ẹni yìí tán ṣẹṣẹ tó ń ṣe nìyẹn. Ẹ wò ó ẹ má jẹ́ ń dènà pẹnu alàgbà wa yìí. Let me warmly welcome him. He's my keynote guest speaker of honor. He deserves honor. He is an academician. Kí ló ń jẹ́ àwọn kan ti kàwé yẹn ṣe mọ̀ àtàwọn alọ́tojúbọ gbogbo ń tàn pé wọ́n sí wọ́n lè mọ wọ́n pè research àwọn atojúbọ lè mọ bí ọbẹ̀ gbẹ́dùn mi ò bú wọn researcher náà ń pè wọ́n researcher ẹni tí ò bá lè tojúbọ lé kò lè mọ bí ọbẹ̀ gbẹ́dùn. Alàgbà wa yìí is a historian. Can you believe he lectured in a number of universities for 30 years? Tẹ́ bá dẹ̀ rí wọn, ẹ rò pé sweet 17 ni wọ́n. Guess what? We are discussing who is a Yoruba. He was born in Bida. Ṣé Yorùbá ni wọ́n báyìí? He was born in Bida. Bida náà ti bí wọn. Wọ́n wá láwọn Yorùbá. Abẹ́ gbọ́ bẹ́ẹ̀. Ṣùgbọ́n o, tàbá tún ní wọn kì í ṣe Yorùbá. Abẹ́gbọ́ ni wọ́n ní ilé ẹ̀gbádùn ọkọ ló ń fọṣọ àwọn náà ń lọ́ta àwọn ló ń pọnmi wọ́n ní àtìyá àti bàbá wọn Ẹ̀gbá ni wọ́n Ẹ̀gbá màmá wọn Àké ni wọn mú ìmọ̀ bóyá gbogbo àmọ̀ pé tán bá ń sọ pé Ẹ̀gbá àwọn bí èdè àìyedè kan wà níbẹ̀ àwọn kan láwọn Gbàgùrà àwọn kan láwọn Òwú àwọn kan láwọn Òkè Ọ̀nà àwọn kan ní akẹ́nìkan ní o akẹ́nìkan ní Àgbá o tó wọ́n ní ọ̀rọ̀ wa Yorùbá ìdùnnú ló máa já sí. Bàbá àwọn alàgbà wa yìí, Abba Kristi lolú náà ń jẹ́. Níjọ́ tí mo ti ń wo orúkọ yẹn ti pẹ́, mo wá bí wọ́n pé dákun, kí ló ń jẹ́ Kristi lolú? Kí ló tún jẹ́ Abba? Ẹ̀yin èèyàn mi, can you believe his real name is Abayomi? And he has shortened it to Abba. And as far as Kristi Lolu is concerned, his real name is Ogunlolu. He then changed his name to Kristi Lolu. Can you believe? So he belongs to wonderful parents. Àwọn alàgbà, màmá àti bàbá wa kan tá ń pè ní Ogunlolu. Òwú ni wọ́n o. Wọ́n ní òwú la kọ́dá. Bẹ́ẹ̀ bá dòwú, ẹ béèrè òwò. Àwọn bàbá wa yìí náà. I don't know if those of you who may be much younger than people like ourselves, you won't know the value of running postal services. I don't know if it still exists, but many years ago, you could own your own small postal agency and run it yourself, providing postal stuff, selling stamps, airmail, and so on and so forth. This gentleman won many scholarships to do research. A historian, one part, historian. So he was very, I will use the word fortunate, because I remember being given scholarship from Lagos, from Western region then, and one year when you get scholarship in Nigeria, now he had many research scholarships. We took him to places like France, Canada, Finland, and many others. So he has traveled the world. Once upon a time, he was a Commonwealth delegate to summits, and that's really high-powered in Edinburgh. And he met the Queen. I mean it. The Queen of England is not like the monarchs of Yoruba land that anybody, Mamalo Farapa, nobody just meet the Queen. You have to be very important to meet the Queen. You can see the Queen miles away. You can see the Queen of England on the TV. But to actually meet the Queen, you have to be very important. And you must have achieved something substantive to meet the Queen. That's the one thing of Kamarilo da Mobawa niye. Anybody look on Mark Bobawa niye kan wabi ma komas woman ni milarani. Koma shawo bawa bo shen shewon ye. Ton ba to fe insult won la won traditional rulers. Me mo to read traditional rulers. King la won bawa. They are not traditional rulers. Rubbish, nonsense to call our kings traditional rulers. I'm not a traditional ruler. So, my special guest of honor for today, his name is Abba Kristi Lolu, but his Yoruba name is Abayomi Ogunlolu. He changed his name to Kristi Lolu. She Ogunye. It's all part and parcel of the journey it's had. So please join me to welcome our academician, our historian, Bida Bon Owu Egba Man. He's going to talk to us for 20 minutes. He's going to share his thought on the topic for the day. Tani Yoruba, Tani Yoruba. To, Alagba, over to you. A very warm welcome to you. I'm delighted you are able to join me today. Please take the floor and share your thoughts, not just with those of us in the studio, but those who are watching on YouTube as well as Facebook. Good luck. Over to you now.
Thank you very much, Ma. It's good afternoon now here in the UK. I'm going to speak both in Yoruba and English. It will be largely in English, but hopefully when I speak in Yoruba, I'll try and translate myself for those who may not be conversant in the language. Thank you very much, Ma. Erelu Tunashe, Honorable Alderman of the Conservative Party here in the UK, and Erelu Tunashe of Udiremo. She's taught a few of the funny things about me, I'm going to call it, which probably is going to also have some bit of bearing to the topic I'm handling very briefly this afternoon. Who is Yoruba? Tani Yoruba? It's a question of identity. And she started by saying, I changed my name. Yes, I did. It's one of those things the Yoruba will do in the heat of his passion, as it were. And I was also born in Bida, which is Nupe land. Again, maybe there's a connection, maybe there isn't. We'll probably find out in the brief discussion I'm going to be sharing with us today. So I thank Erelu for inviting me to give this talk. Thank you very much, man. And thank you to everybody who is joining us. I suspect most of you will probably be on Facebook, YouTube, and other social channels, so I can see you directly, but I would like to extend my warm welcome to you. Maybe if there's a way for your questions to get back at some point, maybe we may be able to interact on those bases. Thank you also to Heritage TV for facilitating this. Thank you very much. Tani Yoruba, who is Yoruba? That's an interesting question. It looks simple. It looks straightforward. It looks direct. But depending on who you are asking, or depending on who asked the question, you will begin to get very different responses. If the person who is asking the question is a Yoruba person and is asking it of a Yoruba person, they'll probably be explaining who the Yoruba person is on the basis of both what they observe, what they know, as well as what they hope, aspire that the Yoruba person will be. If you're asking, or if it's somebody who is non-Yoruba, they're likely to identify or associate the Yoruba person based on maybe their appearance, their name, and what they know about the Yoruba person. If you ask different academic backgrounds, they will give you different responses. If you ask a linguist, Tani Yoruba, he will probably tell you that the Yoruba language is part of a bigger family of language in a particular part of the world, how long it's been there. If you ask a sociologist, a geneticist, a historian, an archaeologist, a philosopher, a minister or practitioner of religion, you will get varieties of definition, explanation of who the Yoruba person is. What I'm going to do in the short time I have is to try and pick on a few of these possible responses of who the Yoruba person is, and then project my own suggestion as to what is a Yoruba person. I would like to say that identity as a reality for all human beings is not static. Identity changes, it morphs, it adopts, it adapts, it modifies. So the Yoruba person or the Yoruba world is also a part of that human experience. First, if you ask the linguistic, who is Yoruba, it's going to tell you perhaps stuff like that the Yoruba language belongs in a bigger family of language called the Niger-Congo body of language that is found on the African continent. We are cited, the Yoruba language, which is also associated with about 14 other languages and dialects. It's probably been in the area for thousands of years. Some estimate as far back as 6 or more thousand years. It means, therefore, that for the linguists, the Yoruba is a group of people who have been in that part of the world, West Africa, Nigeria, and many of the other countries in the area, which includes Togo, Benin Republic, Ghana, Ivory Coast, and so on. They've been situated in that area for thousands of years, 6, 7, or more thousand of years. Therefore, the Yoruba to the linguists will be an indigenous West African that's been there. But we do know also that Yoruba has traveled out of that cradle, that birthplace. It's gone global. It's gone on the ships via this transatlantic slave trade to the Caribbeans, to America, and to other parts of the world. It's also gone on the back of newer recent migration, including myself, who is here in the United Kingdom. It's gone by the diaspora of the Yoruba people to every nook and cranny of the world. Therefore, even if the linguist was to be the one defining the Yoruba, it cannot define the Yoruba strictly by that cradle of where we come from anymore. The Yoruba has become a global person, a global citizen. If you ask the archaeologist, he will tell you that the Yoruba is just one part of the larger human family. And the entire human story is being defined as a migratory story. The oldest human remains had variously been claimed to have been found in the East African valleys, or now South African caves, or other places. What it means, without getting bogged down by the technical details, is that the Yoruba is a part of the human family who has migrated from where we started from to colonize the entire world. And then we have ended up largely from that part of southwest Nigeria that became our cradle. Historians will also say that the Yoruba, who also have this story of creation, some will call it myth. I will call it a story of the creation of the world at Ile-Ife. That Ife is the center of the world. It will mean, therefore, that an identity of the Yoruba, of who the Yoruba is, has evolved around Ile-Ife. Scholars have said, based on plausible factors, that it would appear that the journey of the Oduduwa group, who became prominent in Ife, is not long enough to go back to when the language had been settled in the area. It would therefore go to the school of thought that says the Yoruba is a mixture of two groups of people. One, a recently migratory group of people who you can identify with Oduduwa, who came to Ile-Ife, and an indigenous older group of people who had been in Ile-Ife for much longer, who had the language Yoruba. It would appear, therefore, that the Oduduwa group brought a much more advanced form of political organization, the institution of obas and kings and chiefs and nobility, and settled and brought a political structure onto the land. In other words, politically conquered the land and the people. But the people conquered their conquerors linguistically. So the Odudua group, if we do not go with the much more indefensible story of creation and go with the much more scientific explanation of migration and settlements and political structure, it means that the Yoruba is an amalgam of the Odudua group who became political lords over a group of people who had existed there for a long time, and they marched together to create the world of the Yoruba. If we ask the geneticists, there probably will be markers of the genome in the Yoruba population that is unique and specific to them. The means is becoming increasingly available, so it may be possible at some time for people to check their genes and determine, I am Yoruba by gene. So therefore, the answer to the question, who is Yoruba, based on who you're asking, will be varied and different like that. Some much more important areas of the identity of the Yoruba will have to be around the question of citizenship, of sociology, of philosophy, and religion. The Yoruba culture is, as far as I know, and I'm sure most will agree with me who have any idea of what the Yoruba worldview is a very rich, a very deep, a very refined culture. It's deep, refined, and nuanced up to the extent that we've evolved a system of religious beliefs, religious practices. We've considered and answered questions of the spiritual reality, of perceptions, of real and imagined explanations for what we observe around us. We've considered the question of deity. Is there a God or not? The Yoruba world or culture has decided that there is God and it's been given a name. The Yoruba's concept of God also is humanized. God is conceived largely in an anthropomorphical sense, as though he's a person. He thinks, he loves, he creates. There are other cultures who reduce their concept of God to lesser animals, or animals like sheep, goats, cattle, elephants. That's not the kind of reality we have in Yoruba. Therefore, if you also check the trajectory of religious evolutionary development, the Yoruba religious answer or identity is closer to the scale of the much more refined view of God, which talks of God in the characterizations of people, of men. And indeed, we have real living human beings who had been deified in the Yoruba pantheon. Therefore, you have examples like Shango, who was a real living being at some point, who is gone on to become a deity. Therefore, it means when you speak of Yoruba in the spiritual and the philosophical respects, you will also enter into the world of a rich and diverse world. And we get to such questions as concept of citizenship. In the world of the Yoruba philosophy, there is a concept of omoluabi, which again would play a lot of role onto the question of who is the Yoruba. When the Yoruba sits down to dissect and construct their ideal of the Yoruba, they will speak of somebody who exudes the characteristics of an Omoluabi. And what does that mean? Omoluabi, the offspring of the chief of virtues. In other words, he will be somebody who is characterized by such agreeable, commendable values as patience, as consideration, as justice, as humility, as regard, and such like. He will be somebody given to introspection and self-criticism, somebody who lives to enhance his neighbor and his neighborhood, who does not live a self-centered, egoistic, and narcissist kind of life. Therefore, the Yoruba is, in a sense, a difficult to define person, in the sense that you could go on from one area to the other, and you will continue to open newer details to who the Yoruba is. I would suggest that one of the reasons why this question of who is the Yoruba may have arisen now is because, like almost every part of the world, there is a lot of crisis of identity going on now. We live, and one of the sub-questions we're tackling actually is what are the solutions for the fundamental issues faced by the Yoruba in the 21st century? The Yoruba community, the Yoruba world is at a crossroads, just as the world is. There are traits and developments that people will query whether they should be found in the Yoruba person. Attitudes of selfishness, of greed, of corruption, of disregard for your neighbor are the kinds of things that the Yoruba will see in another person and say, you are not a real Yoruba person. You are Inshomo Yoruba Tata. The Yorubas will, in essence, weigh up people who are genetically and by parentage Yoruba and say, you are not Yoruba because your behavior does not portray what we expect of a Yoruba person. Therefore, we also go into the question of identity on the basis of how people conduct themselves. Therefore, the answer to who is Yoruba, which seemed straightforward and easy at the first glance, is not really that easy or straightforward. The Yoruba is both somebody who has been born of Yoruba parentage. So for example, myself, both of my parents are of Yoruba origin, but I wasn't born in, strictly speaking, Yoruba land. I was born in Bida, which is Nupe land. However, Nupe, Igala are actually one of the 14 other sister languages of the Yorubaid group of languages. So in essence, even as a Nupe-born person, perhaps I am Yoruba. In that sense, if you want, we could expound the net, or we could narrow it. If we make it wide, it will not just be, strictly speaking, Yoruba-speaking people, but every of the language in the 14 associated group of languages, which includes Igala, Ishakiri, Nupe, Jukun, will fall within the group. And that's going to be relevant for maybe some of the questions we're going to be facing in very near future. If we want to self-determine ourselves and have an Oduduwa Republic, who is going to be in Oduduwa Republic? Who qualifies to be Yoruba? We also must not forget the Yoruba that has been taken out of Yoruba land, who is in Brazil, who is in Cuba, who is in the Americas, they also are Yoruba. The Lukumi are Yoruba. So we would need to begin to answer that question in such a way to say, we can be narrow or we can be wide in our definition of who the Yoruba person is. We can also choose to query the conduct of people on the identity of people on the basis of their conduct. We can elevate the question or the qualification for who the Yoruba is to go beyond just the genetical inheritance, the parental lineage. We can you can make it universal and global and say every person who forms or conducts him or herself in this wholesome way of life can be seen as a Yoruba. And I don't see anything wrong with that because, as far as I'm concerned, we are unique and blessed in having been born as a particular line of the bigger human family. At the end of the day, the Yoruba is also a human being. And what we bring to the community of humanity is our well-defined sense of justice, sense of fair play, sense of consideration. And if we could universalize that, if we could make it a benchmark by which people can identify, we can become the new standards for measuring the Omoluabi. And therefore, we can expand the catch to include anybody who will sign up to the tenets of a wholesome human being to be able to identify as Yoruba. And as an historian, I will tell you this. All of humanity, one of the defining reality of human beings, which separates us from every other animal, is we can tell stories. It is the story that you tell that guides your life. Why, for example, would we have many people from right around the world, including Yoruba people, including myself, go identify with a religious tradition and a worldview that is from the Middle East? And I'm a Christian, and I call myself Christy Lulu. Why is that? It's because somebody told a compelling story of Jesus Christ. Somebody told a compelling story that has conquered billions around the globe. We have as powerful a story in our own indigenous, unique Yoruba story. Part of the challenge which we have, if we want to take it up, is to make our story a template that everybody can fit into. And we tell a good enough story out of the 256 Odus of Ifa and the very many SS, which luckily has been reduced into writing by some entrepreneurial scholars of the Yoruba culture. We can make it available and people can begin to see that we have also answered very many of the important questions that say the Christian scriptures answer for human beings, which gives them a sense of identity and belonging, and which means you can use it to better humanity. We also can make Yoruba, and I think it's actually on its way there, by the way, not because we have been particularly organized as we went about it, but Yoruba in its sense, almost on its own, has found its way around the world. But maybe this is the time to begin to clearly define, clearly formulate the identity, the story of the Yoruba, so that almost anybody around the world can become a Yoruba person, can become a Yoruba person by signing up to the higher ideals of the finest traditions of the Yoruba people. I'm looking at my time and I'm suspecting my time is up.
Yes, I thank you. I need you to now try and do a synopsis.
Let me just close, ma, and then people can come in. So the question is this.
It's okay. You can go for 5 more minutes.
Okay,
that's
ma,
fine.
thank you.
Thank you.
So the question is this: who is the Yoruba? That question we're all going to have to answer for each and every one of ourselves. I think many people who are entitled to be called Yoruba will have their Yoruba query because their conduct does not match up. They are not Omoluabi. So we query whether they are Yoruba or Omoale, bastard Yoruba person. On the other hand, we could find, and we should find, people who exhibit fine morals, fine values, who may not, technically speaking, directly identify as Yoruba, and we could extend to them the privilege of being called Yoruba because they live by the fine ideals that we do. So my question to each and everyone will be, who are you? Are you a Yoruba person? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. That's interesting. If you've just joined us, you are on Heritage TV. If you're on the Facebook, thank you for joining me. If you're on the YouTube, likewise. I am Erelu Tunwashe, Erelu Ajun Olojaye, and today have the most cherished privilege of the company of an academician, somebody who is actually lectured in Nigerian universities for 30 years, although living in the United Kingdom. Be that born individual of Egba parents. The topic for today: who is a Yoruba? Who are the Yorubas? Thank you very much, Alagba Abayomi. I'm going to call you the proper name, Abayomi. I'm not going to call you Abba. But
you're welcome, ma. By the way, I'm fine to be called Abayomi or Gululu, by the way. I shouldn't be to Abba because the British are very lazy. They can't remember a long name, but they remember Abba very easily.
Okay. So, Alagba Abayomi, Christy Lolu, that should be Ogulolu. Thank you. Thought-provoking contribution. As you well know, we've got a Yoruba think tank WhatsApp group, Ijiroro, and this topic opened lots and lots of interesting potholes for me. And 3 groups, group 1 on the platform, 2 and 3 elsewhere. And I just want to read out what somebody said. And I put the question, and the person said, a Yoruba is the Oyo. Anybody who is Yoruba is Oyo. The person said that. And I said, oh, really? And he went on to say, at the end of the day, he went on to say, at some point, the Yorubas were defending the borders, and they had soldiers, and they were ambitious, and they captured those who don't even belong to their biological descendancy. Abego. Àwọn èèyàn máa ń gbàgbé pé bàbá wa Odùduwà jagunjagun ènìyàn ni. Tá bá tiẹ̀ wá lọ sọ́dọ̀ Ọ̀rànmíyàn. Ọ̀rànmíyàn ó lágbára. Àwọn èèyàn púpọ̀ kò mọ̀ wípé ibi tẹ́mi ti ṣàn wá, ibi ẹ̀jẹ̀ tèmi tó ń pè ní Ṣàngó ṣùgbọ́n tẹ̀lá oko lórúkọ ẹ̀ náà ni Òtẹ̀ Ọ̀yọ́ àti Ìbàdó. núpẹ́ nìyá ẹ̀ òbí ìjàrá lódò wọn mọ̀ bẹ́ẹ̀ tí wọ́n bá kí Ọ̀yọ́ síbí.
So àwa dúpẹ́ àpò around.
Àbí ẹ tún máa gbọ́ wọn ní tí wọ́n bá ní tán bá ní oko ìrèsé wọn ní tí onírèsé tí ò bá fi gbá mọ́ the igbá that we see that we all call that we believe belongs to the Ọ̀yọ́, rightfully so, but the origin isn't from Ife. Or is it from Ife? That's controversial because a gbọ́ pé once upon a time Ufe ọ̀dáyé ń bẹ ibi tí ilé ayé ti bẹ̀rẹ̀ a gbọ́ bẹ́ẹ̀. But thank you for the scientifically proven contribution. I've got one or two who have joined me, and there's one person I'm really interested in because he's also from an important descendancy in Yoruba land. But by the time his generation takes the stage, I'll be asking, is he the father of a Yoruba child? Let me see if he's still with us. Let me bring him in. Alagba Olawale from Finland. You don't need to put on the video if you don't want to. Alagba Olawale Ẹ̀yin ṣé ń bẹ̀ ń ẹ bá mi kí àwọn ará ilé kẹ́ bá mi introduce ara yín kí n tó fi ìbéèrè tí mo fẹ́ fún yín kí n tó mú lé yín lọ́wọ́. Óyá ẹ̀yin dà. Studio, please find Olawale. Ṣé ẹ ti rí wọn? Ẹ gbóhùn sókè kí n gbọ́ yín o.
Ṣé ń gbọ́ mi mà?
Ẹ bá mi kí gbogbo ará ilé kẹ́ júwe ara yín ní ráńpẹ́ àti lúbi tẹ́ ẹ wà kẹ́ wá bá mi dáhùn. Màá fún yín ní ìbéèrè tí mo fẹ́ kẹ́ dáhùn ẹ kọ́kọ́ bá mi káwọn ará ilé náà.
Mo kí gbogbo àwọn ọmọ ilẹ̀ káàárọ̀ oòjíire ní tilé toko àti lẹ́yìn odi. Ọlọ́run a máa ṣọ́ gbogbo wa.
Àṣẹ.
Elédùà ò ní fi wá lẹ̀.
Àṣẹ.
Gbogbo nǹkan tá a bá ń dáwọ́lé Elédùà a máa bá wa lọ́wọ́ sí.
Àfọ̀gbóhùn.
Gbogbo wa tá a wà lẹ́yìn odi náà àkérè kò délé.
Àṣẹ.
Ọláwálé Ayọ̀túndé Olúwàgbéminíyì Ṣòbògùn ló fà lèmi jẹ́.
Ẹ bá mi gbóhùn sókè díẹ̀ o kó má jẹ́ pé middle range ní volume yín wà.
Ọláwálé Ayọ̀túndé Olúwàgbéminíyì Ṣòbògùn ló fà lèmi jẹ́. Ìran ọmọ Lísàbí Agbòǹgbò Àkàlà ní Abẹ́òkúta Lẹ́gbàá ni mo ṣe. Ìlú Germany ni mo wà báyìí ṣùgbọ́n mo máa ń lọ sí Finland dáadáa. Finland ni mo kọ́kọ́ lọ ń gbà máa lọ ìlú òyìnbó. Ṣùgbọ́n àmọ́ báyìí bí mo ṣe ń sọ̀rọ̀ Germany ni mo wà.
Ẹ ṣeun, inú mi dùn pé ẹ darapọ̀ mọ́ mi ní ọ̀sán yìí. Ẹ̀yin rèé ọmọ Lísàbí Agbòǹgbò Àkàlà ní. Ǹjẹ́ tó bá dọwọ́jọ́ wájú ǹjẹ́ àwọn ọmọ tẹ́ bí ǹjẹ́ a lè pè wọ́n ní Yorùbá?
Àwọn ọmọ tí mo bí.
Olúwa kó wọn kó dá wọn sí.
Àmín mà. Ó ti di dandan Yorùbá ni wọ́n. Kò sí nǹkan míì tí mo máa pè wọ́n because ẹ̀yin àgbà náà lè máa ń sọ pé tọ́kọ̀ bá re òkun tó bá re ọ̀sà àforí fún elébùté ó jọ bí òwe mà.
Ẹ̀rí mi pa.
Kò sí ibi tá a bá bí wọn sí náà tá a bá tì síwájú tá a bá tì sẹ́yìn ilé náà la máa padà mú wọn sí torí orúkọ wa náà ni wọ́n ń jẹ́ wọ́n lórúkọ Yorùbá bó tiẹ̀ jẹ́ pé lóyìnbó la bí wọn sí wọ́n lórúkọ Yorùbá wọ́n lórúkọ ti lé orúkọ bàbá wọn dẹ̀ ni wọ́n ń jẹ́ tó ń jẹ́ èyí tá à ń pè lórúkọ bàbá tá à ń pè ní surname orúkọ bàbá wọn náà ń jẹ́ so definitely Yorùbá ni wọ́n.
Ẹ dákun màmá tó bí wọn kọ́ ṣé Yorùbá làwọn náà? Amọ̀pá ẹbí wọn sílùú àjòjì màmá tó bí wọn kọ́ ṣé Yorùbá làwọn náà?
Màmá tó bí wọn kì í ṣe Yorùbá ṣùgbọ́n ó gbọ́ Yorùbá. kì í ṣe Yorùbá ṣùgbọ́n ó gbọ́ Yorùbá àwọn ọmọdé rẹ̀ wọ́n ń sọ Yorùbá ìyá wọn kì í sọ Yorùbá sí wọn ṣùgbọ́n èmi pinnu lọ́kàn tèmi pé wọ́n á máa sọ Yorùbá wọ́n dẹ̀ ń sọ Yorùbá bó tiẹ̀ ṣe pé wọn ò sọ dáadáa wọ́n á ń sọ Yorùbá torí Yorùbá lè ní sọ sí wọn.
tẹ́ ń sọ nísìnyí wípé torí àwọn ọmọ yẹn wọ́n ń jẹ́ orúkọ ti ìran Lísàbí tẹ̀yìn ti ṣẹ̀ wá torí wọ́n ń jẹ́ orúkọ yẹn bó ti ṣe pé ọ̀nà òkè òkun ni wọ́n wà ẹni wọ́n ń sọ Yorùbá ń tẹ́ ń sọ ni wípé ibi tí wọ́n bí àwọn ọmọ yẹn sí kò ṣe pàtàkì rárá ẹ̀jẹ̀ ara wọn.
Ibi tí wọ́n bí wọn sí ò ṣe pàtàkì sẹ́mi ibi tí wọ́n ti wá ẹ̀jẹ̀ ara wọn ló ṣe pàtàkì sẹ́mi. Rògbòdìyàn tó wà ní ilẹ̀ Yorùbá gan ni ò tí ì jẹ́ ká lọ lọ́dún yìí àti pinnu pa máa lọ ṣùgbọ́n torí ọ̀rọ̀ kòrónà àti rògbòdìyàn tó ń ṣẹlẹ̀ báyìí ní tí ò tí ì jẹ́ ká lọ lọ́dún yìí nìyẹn ìta bá dẹ̀ máa lọ ọ̀hún gan wọ́n á jókòó wọ́n á pẹ́ wọ́n á lè kọ́ Yorùbá yẹn so á lè dán mọ́rán lẹ́nu wọn dáadáa ní tá a ṣe fẹ́ lọ ṣe nìyẹn ṣùgbọ́n ọdún 2020 yìí kò gbà wá láàyè kò fààyè sílẹ̀ fún wa láti lọ ìdí eléyìí nìyẹn tá a ti lọ lọ́dún yìí.
kókó ọ̀rọ̀ tí yín sì ni wípé kò síbikíbi tí àwọn ọmọ tí ẹ̀jẹ̀ yín bá wà lára ẹ̀ kò síbi tán wà lágbàáyé kò dẹ̀ sí ẹni tó bá bí wọn wọ́n jẹ́ Yorùbá wọn jẹ́ Yorùbá tí ẹ̀jẹ̀ tí yín bá ti wà lára wọn Yorùbá ni wọ́n ṣébi tí ẹ fi ọ̀rọ̀ yẹn sí nìyẹn.
bẹ́ẹ̀ ni Yorùbá ni wọ́n.
Yorùbá ni wọ́n.
Bàbá wa ṣé mo lè sọ díẹ̀ mà.
bẹ́ẹ̀ni ẹ bá mi dá sí.
inú mi dùn bí àwọn alàgbà Ọláwálé ṣe ń tẹnumọ́ pé ẹ̀jẹ̀ mo tuntun rí ọ̀pọ̀ àwọn ìyá àwọn ọmọ wa tí kì í ṣe Yorùbá abínibí tó jẹ́ pé ilẹ̀ míì náà ti wá tó ń sọ Yorùbá dáadáa èmi á ròyìn pé ẹ̀jẹ̀ àṣà ìwà gbogbo ẹ̀ ló máa papọ̀ sọ èèyàn di Yorùbá àti ẹni tí ì ṣe Yorùbá ní bíbí bàbá àti ìyá tó bá gbé ìwà Yorùbá àṣà Yorùbá ìhùwàsí Yorùbá wọ̀ lọ́dọ̀ tèmi o ẹni náà di Yorùbá nìyẹn. Mo ti rí German person white woman tí Yorùbá ẹ̀ dán mọ́rán tó ń tọ́ àwọn ọmọ ẹ̀ bíi abínibí Yorùbá tí Yorùbá àwọn ọmọ ẹ̀ dán mọ́rán ju ọ̀pọ̀ àwọn Yorùbá tá a bí sí Nàìjíríà tí wọ́n lè sọ èdè wa so tó bá fi dídá tèmi o ẹni tí ò tiẹ̀ ní ẹ̀jẹ̀ Yorùbá bó bá ti gbà láti hùwà fi àṣà ìṣe Yorùbá kó fi ṣe àṣekọ́ṣe bó ṣe ń gbégbé ayé ẹ̀ wọ́n lè pera wọn ní Yorùbá. They can self-identify as Yoruba people. Well, a bit of a controversial view, but that's my view.
ẹ ṣeun tẹ́ ẹ bá ṣe darapọ̀ mọ́ wa nígbà tí mo fi ìwé ìránṣẹ́ sẹ́nìkan ẹni yẹn wà ní Australia ó ní mọ́mí Erelu ó ní nígbà tán pa gbogbo àwọn ọ̀dọ́ ó lọ́rọ̀ Yorùbá lẹ wá fẹ́ sọ mo ní ṣé bí gbogbo ilẹ̀ ń kébò sí Yorùbá nation we want Yorùbá nation we want Yorùbá nation ara nǹkan tó fà á tá a ṣe ń kébò sí Yorùbá nation ọ̀nà méjì ni ìkan ilẹ̀ yìí ilẹ̀ kan wà tá a rò pé nínú ibi tí wọ́n ti ọ̀tá wa mọ́ tó ń pè ní Nàìjíríà a ní ìgbàgbọ́ pé ilẹ̀ kan wà ń bẹ̀ tó jẹ́ pé gbogbo àgbègbè yẹn àwa Yorùbá la ní gẹ́gẹ́ bí tí àwọn alàgbà Àbáyọ̀mí sọ́nsìn èdè wa ò tiẹ̀ jọra wọn ní púpọ̀ nú ibi tá a mọ̀ pé ilẹ̀ tó ń jẹ́lẹ̀ Yorùbá òde ẹ̀ ń ṣàlàyé fún wa pé àwọn kan wọn dé Ifẹ̀ rí, wọn dé Ifẹ̀ rí.
Bẹ́ẹ̀ni.
Kódà oúnjẹ wọn gan, wọn ń jẹ ẹ̀gúsí. Àwọn tí mo ti pàdé fúnra mi nìyẹn, wọn ò dẹ̀ ń jiyàn. Yorùbá dẹ̀ ni wọ́n, gẹ́gẹ́ bí ibi tán bí wọn sí. Gẹ́gẹ́ bí ibi tán bí wọn sí. Gẹ́gẹ́ bí àpẹẹrẹ, mo rò parí àwọn arábìnrin wa méjì kan tó jẹ́ pé mo rí arábìnrin wa kan tó jẹ́ pé mo rò pé emir méjì ló bí lọ́mọ. Emir méjì ló bí lọ́mọ tó dẹ̀ jẹ́ Yorùbá ni. Àwọn ọmọ emir yìí ń kọ́, àwọn ọmọ ẹ̀ tó ti di emir yìí, ṣé Yorùbá la máa pè wọ́n ní àbí kí la máa pè? Ìbéèrè mi ni wípé alàgbà Ọláwálé, ọkùnrin lẹ́yìn, ẹni gbogbo ẹ̀jẹ̀ tó bá wà lára àwọn ọmọ yín ẹni Yorùbá ni wọ́n, ṣùgbọ́n táwọn ọmọ Yorùbá tó tí ìyá wọn ò bá ti jẹ́ Yorùbá, ẹ̀jẹ̀ méjì ló wà lára wọn, bẹ́ẹ̀ ni àbí bẹ́ẹ̀ kọ́?
Bẹ́ẹ̀ni.
Ńgbà táwa ńlá ń fẹ́ Yorùbá nation, Yorùbá nation, tá a bá rí àwọn ọmọ tó jẹ́ wípé ẹ̀jẹ̀ bàbá wọn ẹ̀jẹ̀ Yorùbá ni, tá a bá dúró lórí ẹ̀jẹ̀ o, tá a bá dúró pé àwọn kan wà ìyá wọn òun ni Yorùbá, a dẹ̀ ń béèrè Yorùbá nation, tẹ́ ẹ bá ṣẹ̀ṣẹ̀ darapọ̀ mọ́ wa, ta ló ń jẹ́ Yorùbá là ń wò yìí o. Àti wá wo àti wo ìgbà ìwáṣẹ̀, ìgbà ìwáṣẹ̀ ń tà mọ̀ ni pé gbogbo àgbáyé náà pè ní ìran Ifẹ̀.
Bẹ́ẹ̀ni.
Ìran Ifẹ̀ tó fẹ̀ láti ibi tí wọ́n ń pè ní ilẹ̀ Yorùbá lẹ́nìí, tán pè ní ilé Ifẹ̀ òní, tó fẹ̀ dé Ọ̀yọ́. Ẹ jẹ́ ká gbé báyìí, téèyàn bá dé ilẹ̀ Ifẹ̀ yìí, a rí gbogbo àwọn ojúbọ níbẹ̀, ojúbọ oríṣiríṣi, ojúbọ àwọn irúnmọlẹ̀, àwọn òòṣà wa. Ẹ jẹ́ ń bi yín, ṣé ẹni tí ó bá jẹ́ Yorùbá ń sìn tí ò fẹ́ rí àwọn òòṣà wa ṣáà lè pé Yorùbá? Ẹ dá mi lóhùn. Alàgbà Àbáyọ̀mí àti alàgbà Ọláwálé ni mo fẹ́ kẹ́ dáhùn. Ẹni tí kò fẹ́ rí òòṣà wa kankan sójú, tá bá ti ní òòṣà rẹ̀ á lóun ò fẹ́ rí wa ṣáà lè pé Yorùbá.
Gẹ́gẹ́ bí mi ti ṣe sọ nínú àlàyé tí mo ṣe mà.
Yes.
Àwọn òòṣà wa ara ìtàn àti àjogúnbá wa nìyẹn. We have a story of being universally relevant in telling the story of Ife creation. If that's the case, we've set ourselves a universal challenge. Therefore, we must tell our story. We must package our story, excuse the very pedestrian label. We must package our story that the entire world can relate with it. And that's the reason why I say we will not have a right to claim that the world of creation started at Ife, and at the same time exclude some people from being able to aspire to being part of the flow that came from Ife. So whether we take it from the perspective of narration or from the practical realities of laying a claim to well, I don't want to use the word superior because in itself it is problematic. If we want to lay claim to a worthwhile worldview, then we must make it universal. Because as I argue with some people, the problem that many people who speak for God have is they speak of a universal God, the God that made everybody. And at the same time, they personalize it and they call it the God of Israel or the God of this place or the God of that place. It can't be both. It's either universally the God of all or it's the God of nobody. So we need to also iron out those bumps in our road. And if we tell our story well, we must have a story that gives everybody an opportunity to thrive and to do well. Any human group of people that thrives on competition and works on the basis of zero-sum game, in other words, I will win everything, you will lose everything, they will forever be fighting. Even the story of the Yoruba, part of the confusion in the Yoruba story has to do with the fact that the Yoruba of the past have missed their way severally in the past. And when they warred amongst themselves, when they fought against each other, and they lost the sense of being one, of being connected, of being universal, they created this endless story that is still creating the problems we have now, where one group of the Yoruba will have an animosity against another group of Yoruba.
If Tabasha Shadara Pomowa, wọ́n ní bí ò bá nídìí, wọ́n ní ọkùnrin kì í jẹ́ kúmólú, ọkùnrin wọn kì í jẹ́ kúmólú, bí ò bá ti nídìí, obìnrin náà pé o. Tábà gbogbo wa tí à ń ṣe ìjàngbáradì lọ́wọ́ báyìí, tá à ń sọ pé a ní a fẹ́ kúrò lóyún, we want to get out of the contraction, we don't want to do Nigeria, ìgbìnìkan, ṣùgbọ́n àwọn nǹkan tó ṣe pàtàkì àti tẹ́bá ti bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí sọ wọ́n ní ká tiẹ̀ sì débẹ̀ náà ká sì sì débẹ̀ náà gẹ́gẹ́ bí n tí àlejò mi pàtàkì ò ní sọ fún mi alàgbà Ògúnlolú alàgbà Abba Kristi Lolú tó ń sọ òun ni wípé tá a bá sọ wípé ká dúró lórí ìtàn tá a bá wípé ulé ufẹ́ nílé ayé ti bẹ̀rẹ̀ tá a bá ti ní passport of Ifẹ̀ gbogbo ayé ló máa ṣe kí ni ló máa entitle sí passport yẹn kódà àwọn tá à ń sọ pé wọ́n ní wá lára àti Fúlàní ní àti Ugbo ní àti nǹkan kan ní n tá à ń sọ ni pé gbogbo wa àwa la ní gbogbo ilé ayé là ń sọ yẹn bẹ́ẹ̀kọ́ ṣùgbọ́n ìyẹn ẹni yẹn lè máa mú ìyẹn ò lè kò múnádóko tá bá dúró lórí àwọn nǹkan tó ṣẹlẹ̀ pé nígbà kan à ń bára wa jà ìtàn yẹn wà lọ́tọ̀ o ti scientific wà o tí ìtàn wà tó jẹ́ pé bàbá wa Oòduà Àtẹ̀wọ̀nrọ̀ òun ló gbé adé fún àwọn ọmọ ẹ̀ tán káàkiri wọ́n tàn títí wọ́n tàn dé orílẹ̀-èdè Republic of Benin ṣùgbọ́n nísìnyí Mauritania àwọn ò tí ì lọ́ba ṣùgbọ́n nítòsí wọn ń bẹ yẹn ní Côte d'Ivoire ní Senegal nǹkankan àwọn Français Togo nǹkankan wọ́n lọ́ba Yorùbá tá ń gbé adélé wọn lórí àlè sọ ṣùgbọ́n ibi tí mo fẹ́ fi kókó ọ̀rọ̀ yìí sọ̀rọ̀ ní díẹ̀ tí sọ ni wípé ṣé rí ẹ tó bá jẹ́ Yorùbá ó gbọ́dọ̀ máa wà nínú ẹ̀mí. We are highly spiritual beings and very connected with our ancestors. Àwọn òkú wa lọ́run wọn sùn tán bá ní kó gbà báyìí tó bá gbà bẹ́ẹ̀ tó bá ti jẹ́ pé wọ́n nílò ẹ̀ ó bá sá lọ sí Abẹ́òkúta tó lè sá sábẹ́ òkúta ní ọ̀ndà Olúmọ àmọ́ ẹ̀ bẹ́ẹ̀ wọ́n gbé ẹ lúlẹ̀ àjọ̀nú èèyàn ní púpọ̀ nù wa ìyẹn náà nídìí gẹ́gẹ́ bẹ́ẹ̀ ṣáà ti gbọ́ ẹ jẹ́ kí n tẹ̀síwájú ara ó dàbí ẹni pé àwọn mi ò kí ṣe pé mi ni mo ṣètò yẹn bẹ́ẹ̀ o nígbà tí alàgbà Kristi Lolú máa sọ pé ibi táwọn wọn láwọn òbí àwọn wọn ní Ẹ̀gbá Aké àti Òwu ni ẹnìkan náà tún wà ní inú agbo yìí tóun náà jẹ́ látòwú èmi kọ́ ni mo tó bẹ́ẹ̀ o ẹ jẹ́ kí n pe alàgbà náà kí ẹ bá mi wò wọ́n jẹ́ Dayọ̀ ní kẹ́ bá ń wórúkọ wọn Dayọ̀ lórúkọ wọn jẹ́ Dayọ̀ Adénáwọ̀ àwọn náà Òwu ni wọ́n alàgbà Dayọ̀ ẹ bá mi kí àwọn aráalé o kẹ́ bá mi sọ̀rọ̀ díẹ̀ ráńpẹ́ bí ẹ ṣe bówú tán àbówú kọ́lẹ̀ yìí náà ẹ dákun ẹ bá mi kàràn wá kẹ́ bá mi dáhùn ìbéèrè ta ló ń jẹ́ Yorùbá ẹ bá mi tẹ̀síwájú alàgbà Adénáwọ̀. ṣé ẹ ti bá mi rí wọn Dayọ̀, are you there? I saw him there, but he doesn't. It's probably. Ẹ jẹ́ kí n tẹ̀síwájú tá a bá rí àwọn. Ó yá alàgbà kan wà ń bíbá látòdìdí ìlú Mauritania náà ti wá darapọ̀ mọ́ wa alàgbà Azeez Ọláìdé ẹ bá mi kí àwọn aráalé ẹ bá mi sọ ìlú bí tí wọ́n ti bí ó dàbẹ̀ pé Dayọ̀ are you there?
Yes ma.
Right.
Good. Káàsán ma.
Ó yá bá mi kí gbogbo ilé kó ṣàlàyé bó ti jẹ́ o àti ìdáhùn ìbéèrè tá à ń béèrè ta ní Yorùbá ṣé Yorùbá ni ẹ àbí tàpá ó yá tẹ̀síwájú.
Káàsán gbogbo ilé. This is a bit unexpected, but I'll try my best. Bẹ́ẹ̀ni, Adédayọ̀ Adénáwọ̀ lórúkọ mi, Adédayọ̀. In fact, my full name is Adédayọ̀ Adédọ̀tun Owólabí Adénáwọ̀. Originally, mo believe pé Ìjẹ̀bú ni mí, from a place specifically called Okun-Ọwá, in the local government of Odo-Ogbolu local government. But nǹkan tí mo wá find out later in time is bàbá mi is ọmọ Òwu ni.
Ẹ bá mi gbóhùn sókè.
Bàbá mi ọmọ Òwu ni bàbá mi láti ìlú Okun-Ọwá. So àdúgbò tó ń pè Odolówu nínú Okun-Ọwá yẹn ni bàbá mi ti wá. Màmá mi kẹ̀dẹ̀ Ìjẹ̀bú tó ń pè ní Ìjẹ̀bú Ayépé, àdúgbò tí wà ń bẹ̀ tó tún ń pè Lówu, Odolówu Ayépé, ibẹ̀ ni màmá tèmi ti wá. So yẹn ló wá fi jẹ́ kémi jẹ́ Òwu undisputed. So by that virtue, and from that viewpoint, Òwu ni mí, which I understand that I'm a direct descendant of the Òwu daughter of Oduduwa, as I understand it. So I hope I've answered the question clearly.
Ẹ jẹ́ kí n béèrè lọ́wọ́ yín. Ẹ̀yin náà Olódùmarè bá mi ṣọmọ fún yín. Ìyàwó yín ṣé Yorùbá ni? Àwọn ọmọ tó wá bí yín sìn fún yín ṣé Yorùbá làwọn ọmọ náà? Torí ẹ̀yin ti páàsì sí pé Yorùbá ni yín. Gẹ́gẹ́ bá a ṣe gbọ́. Àwọn ọmọ yín kọ́ ṣé wọ́n páàsì? Ṣàlàyé fún wa.
Bẹ́ẹ̀ni, Yorùbá ni mí mà. Àwọn ọmọ mi kẹ̀dẹ̀ rèé. Lóòótọ́ ni ìyàwó mi kì í ṣe Yorùbá. Ìlú nǹkan àwọn tá máa ń pè Punjabi ni wọ́n, so Punjab.
Punjabi lọ́hùn.
Bẹ́ẹ̀ni, nínú India, bẹ́ẹ̀ni. Òun náà rí nǹkan tó dáa ló ṣe wá síbi táwa. Bẹ́ẹ̀ni, so àwọn ọmọ mi kẹ̀dẹ̀ rèé, báwọn alàgbà Uncle wa ṣe sọ, the lecturer, is our mommy they have got I guess Owu or Ijebu or Yoruba blood flowing through their veins. So by that virtue, they are Yoruba as well, by virtue of their heritage. But what I would like to be able to understand is what other qualifications will then give them even a stronger claim to being Yoruba. I think I accept that there's a lot of work we need to do, especially in these modern times, and with the depth of knowledge we as humans have come to acquire in order to then invite other people to validate our claim to be part of this human story, I would say. But thank you very much for the opportunities to speak. Thank you.
Gẹ́gẹ́ bí a ṣe ń bá ọ̀rọ̀ yìí tàbí ń tẹ̀síwájú, we want Oduduwa nation. We want Yoruba nation. Now, tá bá ti ń sọ̀rọ̀ we want Yoruba nation. Èyí tó wà nínú Nàìjíríà ni mo rò pé à ń sọ̀rọ̀ ẹ̀.
Bẹ́ẹ̀ni.
Èyí tó wà nínú Nàìjíríà yẹn tá à ń sọ̀rọ̀ ẹ̀ yìí. Wọ́n ní bí agbègbè bí 6 ní. Lára àwọn agbègbè yẹn ní Kwara náà wà ńbẹ̀. Ẹ jẹ́ kí n tẹ̀síwájú kí n wo àwọn tí Olódùmarè ní kan tún bá mi tán darapọ̀. Mo rí alàgbà Azeez Ọláìdé, ẹ bá mi kí àwọn aráalé ìlú ibo ni ìyá ti dúró, ibo ni bàbá ti dúró, ẹ̀ṣẹ́ yìí náà ti bímọ, báwo lọ̀rọ̀ bẹ̀yẹn ṣe rí? Ó yá alàgbà Ọláìdé láti Mauritania.
Mo kí.
Ẹ ń bẹ pẹ̀lú wa.
Bẹ́ẹ̀ ni mo wà pẹ̀lú yín màmá mi.
Ṣé ẹgbóhùn sókè kẹ́kẹ́ àwọn aráalé kẹjúwe ara yín.
Mo kí gbogbo àwọn bàbá àti màmá o. Mo dẹ̀ kí àwọn ẹ̀gbọ́n àtàwọn tá a tún jọ jẹ́ irọ́ táwọn náà wà lórí ètò mà. Ọmọ Iléṣà ni mí, ìlú Mauritania ni mo dẹ̀ wà, olórí ọ̀dọ́ ni mí ní ìlú Mauritania. Bàbá àti màmá ọmọ Nàìjíríà, ọmọ Yorùbá ni wọ́n, tó lè jẹ́ pé Iléṣà náà ibẹ̀ ni wọ́n bí mi sí, ibẹ̀ ni mo dàgbà sí. Iṣẹ́ ajé ló gbé wa wá sí ìlú Mauritania kí àwa náà lè wá bí ọ̀nà ṣe máa là fún gbogbo wa. Mi ò tí ì bímọ, ṣùgbọ́n ó ọlá ogun tá à ń jápọ̀ mọ́ra wọn ló fà á tí gbogbo ẹ̀ ò tí ì fi bọ́ sí kíni, àmọ́ fi gbogbo ẹ̀ sí ọwọ́ Ọlọ́run ọba.
Ẹ ṣé, mo dúpẹ́. If you've just joined us, welcome to Agbakonitoni Odua. Today, the topic focuses on one word, Yoruba. Identity. How do we identify who is a Yoruba? I believe even lately, somebody has been heavily campaigning about pure Yoruba and those who are not pure. I assume so far our discourse has actually highlighted a number of issues. Issue number one, yes, every Yoruba person is connected with a land situated within Nigeria. That is undisputable. We cannot dispute that. You cannot be a Yoruba and disconnected from the headquarters based in Ife of today. If you say you are from Malaysia, you have origin there. If you say you are Ekiti, you have origin there. If you say you are from, it doesn't matter where, you have origin there. But we are saying that we have those who are now in places like Cuba. They don't even speak Yoruba in that sense. They consultify Yoruba language. They have songs in Yoruba language. So there comes the word Ifa. I want to bring in Ifa. This word Ifa, would you say is unique to just the descendants of Ufeo Dua? Would you say it's unique to us, the word Ifa? Over to you, Alagba Abayomi. The word Ifa.
In my view, yes. I think Ifa is universal. And the dispersal of the practice, identification with Ifa now also validates that. I don't think any segment of significant Yoruba population can claim exclusive rights or ownership of Ifa anymore. Ifa has gone global. It's, of course, practiced in the Caribbean, in the Americas, as well as around the world. Again, I think I've asked you for a copy of the translation. You still haven't found it for me, ma. The 56 Odo Ifa is like chapters and verses of the Bible. So it's a scripture that can go around. So we should make it available. It's not exclusive. It's I want to mine it for historical records, for example. I have had a copy that I browsed in the past, which seemed for me to suggest the entry of Christianity and Islam into Yoruba land. It is like the Bible in that sense that it can be treated as a book of records. So I don't think, well, my view, with reason, I don't think it is restricted or exclusive or monopolized by any group anymore. It should be, and it is widely accepted and used by a wide range of people with Yoruba identities right around the world. And when it becomes if we make it available for others to read and to identify with, it should be global in that sense. There's no point in it being localized or restricted. That's my view.
Thank you for your question. I think the issue is not what happens to it. The issue is where it originates from. There's no question.
Yeah.
It's originated via Orunmila.
Yes.
And history, proven history says Orunmila had connection with Ife.
Yes.
Some would argue that it's Ekiti. They'll say because it was a we of Ado, some would say. But regardless, one would say that Orunmila was the source. But one thing we are clear about, which has been controversial, is whether Orunmila was a child of Oduduwa. That's another question.
Yes.
Was he a child of Oduduwa?
I get that question, ma. But my own personal attitude to this kind of question
Can I stop you,
yes,
Alagba? I don't need your personal attitude. I want you to answer the question. Please, go ahead. Yes.
I'll answer the question. There's no grounds for debates. People live and move around the place, for example. So he was identified with Ife, Orunmila. He was also identified with wherever else he went to. So every place he's been to can lay that claim to him. And I don't think people should be making a hue or cry of it belongs to us. It belongs to everybody. It's shared universally applicable insight. Why are you trying to reduce him to one local place? It's pointless. That's the argument I'm trying to make. Sorry to use this example.
I agree with you.
Muhammad started in Mecca. He went to Yathrib, which became Medina. He came back to Mecca. Will Mecca and Medina begin to say, no, it's Medina, it's Mecca? It doesn't make sense. People are not trees, they go around. So if he's gone to places, I then acknowledge the fact that he's gone around. I would make an example of you. You are Erelu Deremama, but you've been in the UK. You've gone to Dubai, you've gone all over the world. Will any of the places you've been claim exclusive ownership of you? They can't. It doesn't make sense.
Oh, darling.
You see, let's look at history. Please, if you've just joined us, can you please mute or exit? Now, the important thing here is history. Historically, some would say Orunmila was an Ife man. Some would say Orunmila is a Ekiti man. Even recently, we have been told Osun is from Ekiti, Ogun is from Ekiti, this one is from Ekiti, but I don't think it matters. The most important thing is all those geographical areas fall under
Yoruba.
Uve. Simple. It's all, I don't believe many years ago what we now clearly sectionalized. I don't think that was as clear as that. But if you've just joined us, the points that we are going through to answer the question, who are the Yorubas or who is a Yoruba? A Yoruba person, we are told, can prove himself or herself either because he or she can speak Yoruba. He or she has the characteristics traceable to Oluiwa, and so can be called Omo Oluiwabi, Omo Oluiwabi, and we'll come to the sort of behavior one would call one linked to Oluiwa. the Lord of good character. Now, and we also have been able to establish that once upon a time, there was no evidence that the descendants of Oduduwa did not go and impose themselves on other areas and turn them to Yoruba-speaking people. Now, there's a particular area in, I think it's in Delta area, Ikwereke, Ubuluku, that area. Yes, where people like Osadebe came from. You know, Ukwere, that kind of area. I've come across people bearing Yoruba name, they are bearing Taiwo. That takes me to another question. When some of us were growing up, even those who are ethics and children born in our compound, they gave them Yoruba names. Although Calabar mother, they gave them Yoruba names. So that means anybody who is got Yoruba name also qualify. This is getting most interesting. I'm going to stop there and do a quick recap. Do we have a crystal clear methodology to establish who is or not a Yoruba today? Should we have a Yoruba nation tomorrow? What are we going to use to establish distinctively who we can call Yoruba people? Do you consider that we will be able to put in place a method? And what sort of method would we put in place to be able to decide who is not? Because if I don't shy away from controversy, if somebody whose mother is Igbo and father is Yoruba, or somebody whose mother is Fulani and the father is Yoruba, wants to buy land, for instance, that's been an issue. Would that person be eligible? Let me stop there and put it back to you. This Oduduwa nation that we are thinking about, how would we determine eligibility to the citizenship or the nationality?
I would encourage eligibility to be wide. I would say anybody who is born of Yoruba parents should qualify. Anybody who can trace their origin, however distant it is, to Yoruba land or Yoruba language or culture, should qualify. And by that, I'm specifically advocating that for people who were taken away by the slave trade and found themselves in the Cubas and the Brazils and the Americas, we should encourage them, if they be so minded, to come back and reconnect with their roots and settle in Yoruba land or Oduduwa nation, or whatever name we choose to identify whatever entity we create, whether it's by restructure or by new nation created in Yoruba land. I would also say, because the Yoruba culture has been advanced and inclusive enough to ensure that in the Yoruba pantheon, you have both male and female deities. We have the Shango or Rumela, as well as Oshun, and female deities. You must be able, therefore, to claim Yoruba identity, even if it was just your mother who was Yoruba. And if we've taken off those basics in the first instance, we can, like, I'm not sure whether I'm happy to use this example, we can then behave like the British and say, we're going to check your character. If you're a fraudster, we don't care if both of your parents are Yoruba. You are not Yoruba. Go away. If you are a crook, we will deny you citizenship in this nation of Oduduwa. But if you are upright and you are brilliant and you are bringing something to the table. Even if you are Polish, you've learned to speak Yoruba, you become Yoruba. That's my own recommendation.
Thank you very much. Somebody just sent me a statement. It says, since I asked the question, how would we determine the eligibility criteria? The person says, boldness, confident, ambitious, well-behaved, very conscious of their background, and respectful. Bold, confident, ambitious, well-behaved, very conscious of their background, and respectful. Let's look at what that person may be referring to as very conscious of their background. Let me give you an example. Somebody who turns out to be a born-again Christian, we are looking at eligibility criteria. Who doesn't want to hear about Orisha at all? Should we allow that person the citizenship or nationality of Yoruba land?
Is that for me, Ma, or for everybody?
It's for you first.
Oh yes,
Since you changed your name from Ogulolu to Christolu.
Since I don't want to strip myself of citizenship, yes.
You see,
but yes, ma, it's a good question, and I like the question because it makes me reflect as a Yoruba person. I am happy to stand up for my decisions. I did my decisions based on what I would consider my Yoruba traits. We don't shy away from difficult questions. The Christian story was compelling, so I bought it and I ran with it. And I'm now older and I've not gone back and realized, wait a minute. The blood sacrifice in the Old Testament and the blood sacrifice in Nephi, they're the same thing. Come on, wake up. So the Yoruba also grows in knowledge. I will not deny anybody their opportunity to grow. And therefore, as long as they are growing along nicely, yes, we want people who are able to take bold decisions. The pantheon of the Yoruba gods, for example, is also filled with bold people. Shango, as an example, with whom you are very familiar since it's your direct descendant. He would go to town and take and fight, and is the god of war, iron, whatever else. It means, in essence, it is an inherent trait of the Yoruba person to take bold decisions. So I own my bold decision to identify, and after I've identified, to query even the new identity I assumed, and to say, nobody is going to cage me anywhere. I'm going to be as full, as contributory, as progressive a human being as I would ever be, wherever I find myself.
Thank you very much for your question. Sorry, thank you for your answer to my question. Let me go further. The issue of religion, many Yoruba tend to want to shy away from it. Many are even talking about keeping it well away from the state. Would you consider that an item that can enhance the identity of a Yoruba person, the identity of Yoruba nation, or it's going to, in fact, lead to the extinction of the Yoruba race?
I speak as an historian and somebody who luckily has also lived a couple of years now. I will recommend we leave religion in the private sphere. It should not be the pursuit of the state. Every time a state tries to organize or manage religion, they both come off bruised. State messes it up and state messes up religion, and religion messes up the state. It should be separate. We are not going to, I would say everybody should be allowed, encouraged, given the ability to function in their own spirituality and in their beliefs, but it should be in their own private space. If we create the Oduduwa nation, we will tell our stories, we will share our values, but we should not invest the state with spiritual responsibility. It often leads to abuse, where, for example, for pecuniary, dodgy purposes, the state and the religious leaders connive to begin to ride roughshod over the people. And then the people get angry, and then they query, and we get to NSAS. If we really want to return back to NSAS, even in Yoruba Oduduwa nation, make a separation between the state and religion. Let religion occupy the private space, and let the state face its own duty, enable a level playing field where people can thrive and function now.
Thank you for your answer, but there comes the question of identity. The most important item via which Yoruba of Brazil will want to be identified by is Orisha.
That's fine.
Those of us who have got links and know the area reasonably well, we know that no government of Brazil will dare ignore Orisha leadership. It is seen as Orisha traditional practices constitutes the only viable methodology of determining a Yoruba person. So, if in the future, those in Brazil, and nobody can deny this, Brazil, the Caribbean, Cuba, they do not see foreign beliefs, be it Islam or Christianity, as something of interest to them. What they see and they promote publicly, nationally, internationally is Orisha. So if they want to come back home to their ancestral land, we now have a government that's going to be saying, please, it's private, leave it in the corner.
When I say private, it doesn't mean they can't practice publicly. What I mean by private is that it will not be aided officially. Say, for example, again, I use an example that we're both familiar with, being British identified. The Church of England is a state institution.
Yes.
It's so they're joined so tightly at the hips that the bishop sits in the House of Lords.
Yes.
It may work to some extent, but if we have the good fortune of having reviewed how things have panned out in places where it's worked or not worked, where it's created problem or not created problem, we've got an opportunity to write afresh now. We should correct the possible areas where conflict may arise. The Church of England, for example, which is a state religion, is nothing but the outplay of rank politics. A monarch wanted to divorce his wife, the Pope said no. So he broke away from Rome and created a state religion. So he can give himself a right to divorce a woman. There was no spirituality or religion in it. It was just a man chasing his own very mundane lifestyle. We don't want that same problem in Oduduwa land.
Well, let me come in there.
Hang them together so they don't tear each other apart.
Let me come in there. You haven't reflected England well.
Okay.
Let me remind, let England in particular, let me remind you, just in case you are implying that England, and I totally excuse you because of this.
I know where you're coming from. I'm going to listen. We've had this discussion before.
Listen, yes. Do you know that an act of parliament in England supports witchcraft? Witchcraft, witches and wizards. Are you with me?
I am.
Witches and wizards. So it's the state responsibility to ensure nobody insults a witch. Nobody insults, nobody insults a wizard.
A wizard.
And witchcraft is seen and recognized as an art. And there is an act of parliament.
Is it possible for me to comment at all?
If you suddenly start rubbishing witchcraft, you may find yourself, it's practiced. So let me not go down that road too much, because I've just opened you to those of us who are quite connected in the sector of traditionalism. Let me, in England. So let me say that you and I need to understand that if we go down the road of Britain, we are going down the road of England. Do you know that the Queen that you know, have you ever heard her in her broadcast saying in the name of Jesus?
Never.
No. So let's leave that alone. So maybe that's not quite, if we go down that road, the state will have to legislate on witchcraft in Yoruba land if we go down that road. And I don't want to go to controversy. Let me leave you there. There's somebody I want to bring in. I want to leave you there. I want a live response. There's somebody I've just seen on the screen. Let me see who I've just seen on the screen. Princess, who I dare say comes from a lineage of Igbakeji Orisha. So let me bring in somebody with eligibility to the ancestral throne, because saying that it should be left aside when His Imperial Majesty Arole Odua or Nirisha Gusi is the co-chairman at the federal level. And those of us who have actually interacted with Igbo traditionalists, we call it Ifa, they call it Ifa, and I've traced their ideology. You know, I'm a practitioner. So
I know.
Let me own that. Let me go straight on to the princess. Are we going to leave Orisha traditional practices of our ancestor out of governance, such as they shall swear with Shango, they shall swear with Ogun? Now,
that's fine.
Hold on, don't come in. I'm not going to allow you. Now, I'm not going to allow you.
May I come in, ma?
Over to you, princess. Princess, tell me, who is going to tell us? Come on, Bura Shango. Please. Oh, yeah. Princess,
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon to you.
You know my Herelu, my stand on this.
It's okay.
You know my stand on this about going traditional or not.
Yes.
I believe we should incorporate the traditional way, or what you call Isheshe, into our constitution when we create the Oduduwa nation. When we say Oduduwa is not an English religion or anything. It wasn't the Christian that formed Oduduwa for us. It was our forefathers. And they must have seen something in it, to have believed in it, to use it as a form of religion. It doesn't stop you being a Christian or a Muslim or even a traditionalist. It doesn't stop you. You could do whatever you want. But my point is that we must lay emphasis on the traditional way of worship. Say, for instance, people in Brazil, they believe more in us in Orisha than we Yorubas. So how can we now forget our Ishedale, our forefathers? You will not go to England and see them worshiping Ogun or whatever because they believe in it.
Okay, Google, what time is it?
Let's call a spade, that I personally believe in using and incorporating Orisha, Ishedale, Ifa. As a matter of fact, people fear using traditional method than English and religion and Muslim, because they've now realized that people can go back and do what they have done with the Bible. But with the traditional means of worshiping, they don't, working by body. They are very loyal to the core. If you decide to go the other way around, you face the consequences instantly. So I think personally, and I support it wholeheartedly, that we should incorporate the traditional ways of religion into it. In fact, I remember when I was young, and in those days, you steal something or you stole something, you go and call Shango, the thunder god, or god of thunder. And before you say Jack Robinson, the person is struck dead with the stolen item placed on his or her chest. That is how quick these things work. But with the English and Europe and Muslim, we can't go this way. You must forgive each other, blah, blah, blah. No. Let us incorporate it when we have our Dudua nation. Thank you.
If the bá ṣẹ̀ṣẹ̀ darapọ̀ mọ́ wa, mo mọ̀ pé alàgbà Ọláwálé láti Germany wọ́n fẹ́ sọ̀rọ̀, ṣùgbọ́n ẹ jẹ́ kí n gbé báyìí. Tẹ́ bá ṣẹ̀ṣẹ̀ darapọ̀ mọ́ wa, n tá ń gbé yẹ̀wò lénìí, òun ni ta ni ó ń jẹ́ Yorùbá, ta ni Yorùbá, àwọn ni Yorùbá, kí la ṣe lè mọ̀ Yorùbá, orílẹ̀-èdè Yorùbá, kí ló ṣe pàtàkì, ìjọba Yorùbá, kí ló ṣe pàtàkì. Àwọn alàgbà tí mo gbà lálejò lénìí, ọ̀jọ̀gbọ́n ni wọ́n nínú ìtàn, wọ́n ti ṣàlàyé ọ̀rọ̀ lọ́pọ̀lọpọ̀ fún wa, wọ́n gbé sí ọ̀tún, wọ́n gbé sósì, gbogbo ń tán sọ pátápátá ló mọ́ gbọ́ dání. Ibi tá a dé ń sìn, òun ni pé à ń sọ pé a fẹ́ Yorùbá nation, à ń sọ Odùduwà nation, à ń ṣe pé a fẹ́ kúrò ní orílẹ̀-èdè Nàìjíríà, Odùduwà nation àbí Yorùbá nation, irú ìjọba wo la fẹ́ ń bẹ̀, irú ọ̀nà wo la ṣe fẹ́ máa tó. Ohun tí àwa ń sọ lọ́wọ́ yìí sì ni pé tá a bá ti pè ní Yorùbá nation, Yorùbá kì í ṣe Kristẹni, babaláwo ṣe Kristẹni, wọn ò dẹ̀ kì í ṣe Mùsùlùmí. Tẹ́ bá dé ìlú Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates, bẹ́ẹ̀ dé ìlú Saudi, ẹ lè sọ pé ìlànà bàbá ńlá wọn kọ́nà fi ń ṣèjọba wọn. A lè wà lórílẹ̀-èdè Yorùbá ká máa dáfà ó, a máa ń ṣe ọdún fànà ó. A lè pe kan ní orílẹ̀-èdè Yorùbá ká wá sọ pé ìjọba tó máa tó ibẹ̀ kò ní gbọ́dọ̀ máa dáfà. Àwọn ọba wa ṣáwọn náà máa jẹ́ olórí ń bẹ̀ ni, àbáwọn tá à ń dìbò fún wọ̀nyí, àwọn tá à dẹ̀ ń dìbò fún wọ̀nyí, ṣé wọ́n ṣì máa valid? Aláwọn olóyè náà àti ní ìlànà ìjọba tiwa kéèbó tó dé. Àwọn ọba tí wọ́n insult tó ń pè ní traditional rulers, tó yẹ kán lọ council rubbish yẹn tó ń pè wọ́n, they are not traditional rulers, ọba ni wọ́n. Àwọn ọba wọn yẹn, àwọn ni wọ́n jókòó lórí ìtẹ́ àwọn baba ńlá wa. Àwọn náà jẹ́ ibi tí tá a fi rí dájú pé orílẹ̀-èdè Yorùbá ni, orílẹ̀-èdè Yorùbá gbọ́dọ̀ lọ́ba. Ọba yẹn sì tá bá fẹ́ gbé sórí ìtẹ́, ṣá máa lọ dìbò fún ni, àbí ṣé a tún fẹ́ máa continue nírú rubbish tá à ń ṣe lọ́wọ́lọ́wọ́ báyìí nínú Yorùbá tó wà ní inú orílẹ̀-èdè
amúnisìn tó jẹ́ pé àwọn ọba wa nọ́mbà 4 náà fi wọ́n sí Buhari vice president ó tó kàn wọ́n ṣá local government chairman lọ́gá wọn local government chairman lọ́gá wọn nínú constitution tí ó ti jẹ́ pé àfẹ́ 1999 constitution kò sáwọn ọba wa nú ẹ̀ a lè máa sọ pé à ń jàjàgbáradì àforílẹ̀-èdè Yorùbá káwá jẹ́ pé irú orílẹ̀-èdè òyìnbó la kàn fẹ́ tún gbé padà síbẹ̀ tá máa pè lórílẹ̀-èdè Yorùbá ǹjẹ́ ìyẹn máa tọ́ náà tá bá ti pè ń Yorùbá abẹ́rẹ́ ibi tá ti ń bọ̀ ni kí ni àwọn àmì tá fi mọ Yorùbá láti ní nǹkan ṣe pẹ̀lú Oòduà àtẹ̀wọ̀n ọ̀rọ̀ ó láti ní nǹkan ṣe pẹ̀lú fẹ́ àwọn òòṣà wa lókun fẹ́ yẹn Olókun bẹ́ẹ̀nbẹ́ Ọ̀ṣun bẹ́ẹ̀nbẹ́ Ògún bẹ́ẹ̀nbẹ́ Ọ̀ṣọ́sí bẹ́ẹ̀nbẹ́ Ọbàtálá bẹ́ẹ̀nbẹ́ àìwá ní àwọn níjọba bàbá rẹ̀ nífẹ̀ẹ́ ṣe Christianity ẹ̀ tí ò bá fẹ́ ẹ jẹ́ kí n kó lè yé yín dáadáa ní England tèmi ti wà nínú pààtì kan fún ọdún 24 tí mo ṣe 16 years ní iwájú pẹpẹ òṣèlú bó ṣe wà bẹ́ẹ̀ sìn tẹ́nìkan bá lóun ò ní báwò fún Queen ṣé ǹjọ́ máa di prime minister kò sí prime minister tí ò ní lọ síwájú Queen kó máa lọ bẹ́rí fún Queen lọ̀gá ẹ̀ head of state nìyẹn therefore gbogbo ń tẹ́ sọ pátápátá alàgbà Ògúnlolú ni mo fara mọ́ ó yẹ ká gbàyàn mọ́ra ká gba Brazil mọ́ra ká gba America mọ́ra ká gba Republic of Benin mọ́ra àwọn Ghana àwọn Ashanti àwọn fọ́n ká gba àwọn mọ́ra ṣùgbọ́n nǹkan kan là lè gbọ́dọ̀ no kí náà ń pè tán bá ní not negotiable òun òòṣà tó bá ti fẹ́ ṣèjọba tó o bá ti lè wá bá wa bó òòṣà kò sí tó ń ṣe ń dìjọba wa kò sí tó ń ṣe ń bẹ̀ torí pé ẹ wo ìṣòro tá a máa ń ní láyé tá a wà ń sìn tó bá dàsìkò tá à ń ṣọdún fá wọn ò ní fún àwọn èèyàn ní public holiday tó bá di Christian mass wọn á fún wọn àbí Christmas wọn á fún wọn ní holiday tó bá di iléyá wọn á fún wọn lọ́lídé Ọlọ́run bá kó bá mi kẹ́ kó bá mi máa gẹ ibi tí Arẹ́gbẹ́ṣọlá ti ṣẹ̀ wáyé màmá ẹ̀ in particular torí pé ẹni tó bá bíyàn inú ibi tán ti bí ó ṣe pàtàkì ọmọ gidi ni nígbà tó wà nínú ìjọba ó fún àwọn babaláwo ó fún wọn ní 33 million ó ní kán lọ fi tún tẹ́ḿpùlù ṣe ó fi gbogbo àwọn nǹkan mèremère tá a lè fi rántí àwọn heroes wa àwọn bàbá ńlá wa tó jà fún wa bẹ́ẹ̀ bá wọnú bíbélì ẹ̀rí àìsáyà ń bẹ ẹ̀rí matthew ń bẹ ẹ̀rí kílótùkù mark kíní kan judas pàápàá wà ń bẹ ṣó ti yé yín therefore tá a bá la fẹ́ jàjàngbáradì orílẹ̀-èdè Yorùbá ní o àbó Oòduà ní now òòṣà àti Ifá wọn gbọ́dọ̀ dúró ń bẹ ìṣẹ́mṣẹ́m nítorí pé bí èèyàn bá wá bí ẹ ṣe mọ̀ alàgbà nínú gọ́fìmẹ̀ntì Gẹ̀ẹ́sì àwọn tí ò gbà Ọlọ́run gbọ́ wọ́n wà ń bẹ̀ àwọn tó ń gbọ́ Ọlọ́run gbọ́ wọ́n wà ń bẹ̀ tó bá dẹ̀ ti ní kérésì dé ó gbọ́dọ̀ lọ ṣọ́ọ̀ṣì kò ní sọ pé òun ò lè lọ ṣọ́ọ̀ṣì tó bá ní mùsùlùmí dé ó gbọ́dọ̀ lọ sí mọ́sìkì kò ló lóun ò lọ therefore ẹni bá ti fẹ́ ṣe aṣojú orílẹ̀-èdè Yorùbá ó gbọ́dọ̀ gbà pé níjọ́ta bá ti ń bọ Ṣàngó àfẹ́rí níjọ́ta bá ti ń bọ Ògún àfẹ́rí níjọ́ta bá ti ń ṣọ̀ṣun àfẹ́rí you know why because he or she represents Odùduwà Yorùbá nation tó o bá ti lè wá níjọ́ta ń bọ Ṣàngó tó o wá níjọ́ta ń ṣọ̀ṣun kí la gbọ́dọ̀ ṣe fún àmàyọ ni nítorí pé you cannot represent Yorùbá nation and disrespect the identity Ọlọ́run Oòduà nìyẹn Ọlọ́run Yorùbá nation nìyẹn Ọlọ́run lọ́wọ́lọ́wọ́ báyìí gbogbo àwọn ọba wa púpọ̀ nínú wọn ti di mùsùlùmí àwọn ọba wa púpọ̀ nínú wọn ti di kristẹni àwọn tí wọ́n tiẹ̀ wá fẹ́ ṣe ìṣẹ̀ǹbáyé yìí ọba kan gbogbo àwọn afọbajẹ tó fi síbẹ̀ wọ́n ti di kérúbìm and seraphim. Now ṣọ́rọ̀ mi sí kí ló fẹ́ ṣẹ̀ṣẹ̀ àwọn ìwà kan náà wà tí ó jẹ́ pé àwọn oníṣẹ̀ṣe wọ́n ń hù tán fi ń ba kárátà Yorùbá jẹ́ kọ́mọ aláwọn ń fòkú ọba rúbọ gbogbo nǹkan tí fáwọn sọ tá a bá fi sí ọwọ́ ìjọba àìfi sí ọwọ́ ìjọba ni wọ́n ń ṣe kátàkátà lọ́wọ́lọ́wọ́ báyìí. So kókó ọ̀rọ̀ mi ni wípé mo gbàgbọ́ pé anybody tó bá ti jẹ́ Yorùbá tó bá ti ní orísun ní Ufẹ̀ ó ti qualify, ìyá ló jẹ́ Ufẹ̀ ni bàbá ló jẹ́ Ufẹ̀ ni ó ti qualify. Ṣùgbọ́n tó bá ní òun ò fẹ́ róòṣà á padà síbi tí bàbá ńlá ẹ̀ ti ń bọ̀ ni. Tó bá ti ní òòṣà rùn wúnú kò nídìí. So I'm saying one important identity for Yoruba people has to be acknowledgement of the continued existence of our ancestors who are known as Orisha. Ọbàtálá ancestor ni, Ògún ancestor ni, Ọ̀ṣun ancestor ni, Ṣàngó ancestor ni, Òrìṣà Ògìyán ancestor ni, and so on and so forth. Even nílẹ̀ Yorùbá à ń tọ́jú èṣù ṣó ti yé yín, èṣù tiwa is not a demon. Tó bá ti lóò lè bẹ́ṣù jókòó ṣe rí pé kò ní ìdìgọ́ wá síjọba wa. So our nation, Yoruba nation, understands the importance of èṣù. Wọ́n fún èṣù ló ń jẹ, à ń fi sáà yí ẹ̀, à ń bẹ̀ ń ṣẹ́, ṣùgbọ́n tó bá ti lóò fẹ́ bẹ́ṣù ṣe, á jẹ́ pé you are not a Yoruba, you better go to Ọlọ́run ló mọ̀, wọ́n á lọ síbi kan tẹ́ bá rán wọn sí. Ṣé ti yé yín tó ti fẹ́ réṣù. Now, if you've just joined me, I am enjoying every moment of this. Why? Because for once, we are beginning to open up controversies. This program is called Agbakonitọ́nílé Odùduwà. The main objective is to facilitate understanding, to reduce misunderstanding, èdè àìyedè, àìgbọ́ra-ẹni-yé, ìtàmàbára wa jà tá máa dọ̀tá. Ṣé mo pé nídìílé mi right now, nídìílé mi mo ti rí ẹnìkan professor ni, Christian ni tẹ́lẹ̀, ó ṣiṣẹ́ rẹgbẹtẹ láti lè ṣe àlàyé bí ọ̀rọ̀ ìṣẹ̀ǹbáyé ṣe jẹ́. Nígbà tó kú wọn láwọn ọmọ ẹ̀bọ́ ní grey ní wọn fẹ́ káwọn oníṣẹ̀ṣe débẹ̀. Wọ́n deny woman yẹn ní honor. Wọ́n deny it. Now, that's another thing that the government must take charge of. If somebody dies and the person had connection with Isheshe, whether the children like it or not, the woman must get respect. It's the woman who died. It's the woman who need respect. Bẹ́ẹ̀ni làwọn olóògbò ní dé àtàwọn olóṣùgbò táwọn ara wa tán bá ṣòṣù àbí wọ́n rẹ̀ bí wọ́n yẹ kán lọ. Wọ́n láwọn fẹ́ ra àwọn olóògbò níbẹ̀ kí ló ṣe yín? Ṣẹ́yìn lolóògbò ni àbí bàbá yín àbí ìyá yín? Why? You ngbà tó máa lọ join Ògbóni ìyá ẹ̀ ló wá bá wa. Ngbà tó máa lọ join ní Ògbóni bàbá ẹ̀ ló wá bá wa. Now, you tell me, is that not breach of human rights? If a mother was a member of Ògbóni and the woman died, the children will say they are born again Christian. Ẹ má wá bẹ́ẹ̀, ẹ jẹ́ ká wá gbókù wa ká lọ sìn. Kí lẹ̀ ń ṣe ń bẹ́ẹ̀? Tá bá sin òkú wa tán, ẹ̀yin ẹ máa lọ ṣe thank you Jesus. Níbi tó bá ń wù yín, àwọn ò lè gbà fún yín. You can see where the rights of those who choose to practice our traditional ways get denied. They denied the children. They deny them of their rights. Ṣé wàá ń bẹ̀ nígbà tí ìyá yín wá bá wa tó lódògbò ni? Ṣé wàá ń bẹ̀ ni? Tó bá kú tán ẹni ẹ̀fẹ́ rólógbò ni pé tá ń sọ bẹ́ẹ̀ fún yín. Tá ń sọ bẹ́ẹ̀ fún yín. These are the issues discriminated against. So we need to solve. Having said that, let me calm down and say all of these are up for discussion. After all, I'm not a Yoruba nation. I'm a Yoruba nation. I'm just bringing out potential issues that may bring up misunderstanding that we need to tackle, we need an agreement on.
Right.
But the important thing is we need cohesion. Let me see who else has just joined. I think Alagbola Wale wanted to say something. Alagbola Wale, over to you. Alagbola Wale, are you there? Ẹgbọ́n sókè o, ẹgbọ́n sókè, ẹgbọ́n sókè.
Lórí ọ̀rọ̀ tẹ́ sọ náà ni nípa ta ló lè jẹ́ Yorùbá. Mo fẹ́ fi ṣe àkàwé bí wọ́n ṣe ń ṣe nílẹ̀ Gẹ̀ẹ́sì àbí nílùú Èkó táwa wà yìí. Tí ìyá èèyàn àbí bàbá èèyàn bá ti jẹ́ ọmọ onílùú, ọmọ tí wọ́n bí yẹn lẹ́sẹ̀kẹsẹ̀ ó ti di ọmọ onílùú nìyẹn. Bó ṣe yé èmi sí nìyẹn. Tí ẹni tí ò wá ń ṣe ọmọ onílùú tó bá wá fẹ́ gbé inú ìlú yẹn, nílùú tèmi ń gbé sìn wọ́n ti ṣe lọ́dún 4. Ó dẹ̀ nídìí tán fi ṣe lọ́dún 4, àmọ́ ńgbà táwa kọ́kọ́ dé ọdún 10 náà kọ́kọ́ ṣe, wàá kọ́kọ́ gbé ìlú yẹn fún ọdún 10. Wàá kọ́ ìṣe àti àṣà wọn. Wàá gbọ́ èdè tí wọ́n ń sọ dáadáa kó tó di pé wọ́n fún ẹ níwèé tó máa dọmọ onílùú. Tó o bá wá dọmọ onílùú yẹn náà o, ìwọ tí wọn bá bí síbẹ̀ tó jẹ́ pé àtọ̀húnrìnwá ni ẹ́ tí wọn bí ẹ síbẹ̀, o ò lè dolórí orílẹ̀-èdè. Ó ní àwọn ipò kọ̀ọ̀kan tó jẹ́ pé o ò lè dé àfi tó bá jẹ́ pé wọ́n bí ẹ sínú ìlú yẹn ni. Bó ṣe jẹ́ mi sí nìyẹn. Náà lórí ọ̀rọ̀ ẹlẹ́sìn dé òṣèlẹ́sìn, bó ṣe yé mi sí, ẹ̀yin àgbàlẹ̀ máa ń pa lówe pé a lè fi tipá mẹ́ṣin lódò, a lè fi pa ní kó mú mi. Èmi ní tèmi o, ìmọ̀ràn tèmi ni wípé tí èèyàn bá fẹ́, bóyá o fẹ́ dọmọ nílùú, àwọn òòṣà wa ni wàá fi búra kó tó dọmọ nílùú. O fẹ́ gbapò kan ní o, òòṣà wa ni wàá fi búra. O fẹ́ ṣe kìrìsìtẹ́nì ní o fẹ́ ṣe onímùsùlùmí ní o, àyè gbà ẹ́. Àmọ́ bóyá o fẹ́ gbapò, o fẹ́ lọ sí ibi tí wọ́n máa fi ẹ́ sípò tó jẹ́ pé ìwọ ló máa wà nípò, bóyá wọ́n fẹ́ tọ́jú owó ní o, bóyá a fẹ́ ṣèjọba ní o. Àwọn òòṣà ti wa là á fi búra. Bí mọ́mì wa ṣe sọ, bí wọ́n ṣe sọ pé àwọn èèyàn wa bẹ̀rù àwọn òòṣà wa ju àwọn bíbélì àbí kúránì lọ, torí àwọn òòṣà ti wa àwọn òun ṣe sùúrù, àwọn adájọ́ ibi tí yóò bá dẹ̀ dé nísìn tábàtì lábẹ́ ní orílẹ̀-èdè Yorùbá, ibi tá a dé tá a bá kọ́kọ́ bẹ̀rẹ̀, bóyá 100 ọdún sí ìsìn yìí o, a lè pààrọ̀ ẹ̀ o tí táwa bá ti lọ, bóyá torí àwọn èèyàn bá ti pé, but àmọ́ ní ìsìn bẹ́mi ṣe sọ o, báwọn ọmọ mi ṣe sọ lẹ́ẹ̀kan yẹn o, àwọn Ògún, Ṣàngó, Ọya, Ọbàtálá tó jẹ́ pé wọn ò ní sùúrù tọ́lọ́ bíbélì ọlọ́run bíbélì àwọn yẹn, irú yẹn ló máa ń mú èmi lọ́kàn ká lò. Ọ̀dọ̀ tá a bá dé ibi tá à ń lọ, àá jókòó, àá gbìmọ̀ ẹ̀ náà ni. Àjọ sọ pé òkè, àjọ sọ ní tùbínùbí pé báwo la ṣe fẹ́, ṣé báyìí la ṣe fẹ́ ni. Bọ́n ṣe máa sọ léyìnbó, majority carry the vote. So àmọ̀ràn tèmi ni.
Ẹ ṣeun. Tẹ́ bá ṣe darapọ̀ mọ́ wa, ọ̀rọ̀ gbogbo ìjàgbáradì tàǹjà àfẹ́ dúró lórílẹ̀‐èdè Nàìjíríà mọ́ o, àti finish pẹ̀lú wọn pátá. A fẹ́ lọ dá dúró. Kí ni àwọn, ẹ jẹ́ kí n sọ lóyìnbó, ó ní pé what are the fundamental challenges we face in the 21st century? We are now in the 21st century. We have lived within the contraption called Nigeria. Some will say it's just 60 years. I will say no. I would say it all started 1960, but before that, so I would say it's 160 years. So let's face it. Now we are all fed up of the entity called Nigeria. Even within the entity called Nigeria, the identity of Yoruba is not recognized. It's not recognized. We've been Yoruba. We've been inside this contraption, yes, for the last 60 years. They don't give the traditional, the way of our ancestor. When our Aroli Oduduwa, His Imperial Majesty, one major celebration of our ancestor called Olojo, the entire Yoruba nation should be on holiday. The entire Yoruba nation should be on holiday. They don't give us any holiday on that day. That is Oduduwa Day. They don't give us one day. Then we have Olokun celebration. Olokun, favorite wife of our progenitor. Taban Shodun Olokun, on even holiday. Pàtàkì jùlọ, when our own new year starts, first week in June, or doing far, they don't give us no holiday. Can you imagine? For the last 60 years, they failed to recognize us in this contraption. But they recognize Islam. They recognize Christianity. And when Yorubas are talking about end SARS, I wonder why they hadn't been talking about end religious intolerance for the last 60 years.
Okay.
They never did the answer. Is it protest they did? They never did that. Now, let us move on. If you want to talk and you're in my studio, please unmute or log off. So, I don't want us to end up bringing in the conflict that I try to prevent. Let us agree that right now, the issue of religion is a source of major conflict. So we've looked at ways by which we prevent the conflict. Somebody says, and if you go to any WhatsApp group, you only have to post good morning in the name of Jesus. They will tell you, no religion here, no religion here, no religion here. Or you post, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Hey, we don't want religion here. Hey, we don't want religion. If you say Aboru Aboya, you are finished on that platform. You see what it means? We don't want, and if you put a verse of Ifa story, why do you like to bring in issue that bring controversy? Is it not sickening that Yoruba people, they have become emotionally, psychologically disconnected from a very important source of identity? They don't want to know Ifa. Ṣùgbọ́n nísìnyí gbà tí ẹ̀ ń sàdé àti Christian àti Muslim lọ́lọ́ ń tẹ̀lé àwọn olóòṣà tó ń fọ́gbá mọ́lẹ̀ tó ń rìkọ́dẹ̀ lórí fídíò pé wọ́n ti pa àwọn Fúlàní gbogbo náà ń tẹ̀lé wọn. Tó bá wù wọ́n, wọ́n bá rí i pé agbára ò sí fún wọn mọ́, wọ́n á kó ṣọ́ọ̀ṣì wọn máa bọ̀. Let me say one thing I've also heard before. On this program, I had the privilege of hosting an archbishop, and he said, one thing we Yoruba have, we need to teach the other parts of the country called Nigeria is the fact that Muslim and traditionalists and Christians, we cohabit peacefully. And I would quietly say, now lie. If you happen to have a daughter-in-law, who is a born-again madness, and you are Olosha like me, the person will take your son away from you, try to prevent you. This is the madness that goes on. It is my son, no? I'm just giving you a scenario. If I happen to have a son married to a born-again madness, and I'm a traditionalist, she won't want to identify with me. And yet she will want to identify with my son. Why she doesn't leave my son and carry her bag and get lost? I don't know. That's what I would expect most mothers who find themselves in their position to do.
Oh,
Don't marry the son of Folosha.
the mother should talk to his son, man.
You see the point? This is the key. And I'm very glad you brought that up. There are certain failures on there. There are certain failures. What? But let me tell you, a lot of these women, they may not start with born again madness. They won't. And I say madness because Jesus Christ, Jesus in the Bible, I don't know Bible. I understand he never discriminated against anybody. Prophet Muhammad entered Mecca and talked about let your religion be yours. So I don't understand it. But let's agree that religion is a major source of, over to you now, Alagba Ogulolu. And I don't want to hear you call yourself Christy Lolu here on this program until we finish.
I'm fine. I'm fine to be Ogulolu is my name, man. Like I was saying, actually, if we go over everything that we're saying, we're actually saying the same thing, you know?
That's true. Yes.
And it is the fact that religious sentiments and religious matters tend to be very, very passionate. That's why we need to handle it with care. Point number one. If we have effective means in traditional religion in Isheshe, where those who are corrupt will be dealt with promptly, as soon as he steals 1 naira, 1 pound, Shango pa, I'm fine. I'm good by that. Yes, we will get a very good society very, very quickly. I don't have any problem. But as politicians, we must also recognize that once you begin to push and legislate in such a manner as to give some other people an opportunity to say, oh, you are favoring those people, you are not favoring us, you're already creating problem. So when you have a situation where Ishasha should have his place, but when I say we should separate between them, I'm not saying you should deny or not acknowledge or not incorporate. I'm just saying don't protect and facilitate one faith over the other. At the same time, don't also deny those who choose not to believe. Don't deny them anything. As far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, ma, even if you don't believe in Shango, if you steal something and they send Shango after you, Shango will still deal with you. Then we don't have a problem. Whether you believe in it or not, as long as you've incurred the wrath of Shango, you get your comeuppance. That's fine. If you like, don't swear to Ogun or Shango, but we will have, there's a way in which whatever it is, the process will already have been in place anyway. This is our nation, Oduduwa. These are the pronouncements that we make. These are the entities that we empower. And therefore, if anybody steals our collective resource and privatizes it, may them not last 3 days. Put all that emotion, whether anybody believes it or not. When he gets thunderbolt cut off his head, he will know whether he believes or not. So find out that. Put all that in it. But what I'm saying is, don't overcorrect. We have complained about the fact that the white people came and colonized us and then demonized and denigrated our faith cultures. They demonized and denigrated our belief. It is this same funny English people who came with the missionaries and said, Eshu is Satan. They don't have the theological insight to make such pronouncements, but they did anyway, because they had the upper hand. Therefore, I'm saying, let's not repeat the same mistake that we've seen other people do before. Let the gods make their way and create their way. We will create the opportunity for those who have the belief to come into Dudua land and show that we can practice Isheshe in a manner that makes the nation better than it could ever have been without it. That in itself will recommend Isheshe to the people. It becomes a democratic thing that people are clamoring for it, so that when people even stand up and say, I want to be your governor in Odudua Nation, they say, so what faith tradition do you support now? And you say you're a Christian, they say, we don't want you. Let the people make that decision. Let it not be by fiat. Because if we make it by coupling, if we empower one faith, one tradition over the other, that faith in itself will lose its vigor. That faith will become lazy. Let every faith, let all the gods get out and go and do their own battle. And the God that wins, let him come and then present himself for adoption. That's my own position.
Well, I want to say I wholeheartedly agree with you. What you are saying is let's have level playing ground. Right now, Christianity in Nigeria is too overt. They are allowed to go on radio and insult the traditionalists. They go to church.
Let the traditionalists say to go after them. Let traditionalists say to go after any pastor.
Hold on. You see, only now, I want to acknowledge the way our Aroli Odua is handling it at the moment. As far as Baba is concerned, Oni Risha, or Jaja Ikeji is concerned, if you call him to Aladura, he will answer you. You call him to Pentecostal, he will answer you. You call him to Muslim, he will answer you. Are you with me? If it is true that our monarchs are meant to be our leaders, the only thing I see that many monarchs are going through at the moment is, in fact, from we, the traditionalists. They'll say, he's a Christian. What's the matter? He's going to church. Why is he going to church? He's saying Jesus. Why is he saying Jesus? I'm only going back that even we, the traditionalists, we must understand that if we truly consult Ifa to put in a king, that Ifa should know that the king is a Christian.
Exactly.
And if Ifa has chosen a Christian and put a Christian on the throne, does that Ifa expect that monarch not to go to church? I don't think it's to do with Ifa. I think it may have to do with whether the monarchs are meant to. Please, if you are talking in my studio, log off. Log out, please.
Right double down to select the custom action, then double tap to activate.
Somebody is still chatting. Can I invite the studio to mute everybody?
Mute yourself, please, if you're not speaking.
I think it's not appropriate to sit on Zoom and be chatting. Now, let's say I don't like the way the monarchs are being treated. And I have to say, the traditionalists, the Sheshe people, they have reason. For instance, you see a whole host of monarchs, they'll go to the church and start dancing, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. You see? And they go and hand themselves over and say they have become Christians. Now, Isheshe people have problems with that. If you know you are going to become a Isheshe person, you're going to become a born-again Christian, maybe you should go and step down and go and do your evangelism. Some of them believe. So we are looking, by the way, if you've just joined me, we are looking at the challenges we are going to face when we have this Oduduwa nation or Yoruba nation. Majority of the monarchs are Christians now. Majority of the monarchs are Muslims now. Even before they give their child the name Ifagbemi, they will give the child Abdurrahman. You see, these are the kings. They are doing that. Can we force them to stop it? Is it possible now? Or are we going to agree that our ancestors behaved so well and their prayers were heard, and we now have new way of relating to Olodumare? So I think tolerance is what we need to begin to enable. A lot of the traditionalists, they don't like their monarchs to say they are Christians. They don't. A number of the monarchs themselves, they want to say they by Jesus because they don't want to be seen as, quote, demonic or don't know God. A lot of the monarchs, they even bear the, I know a monarch that if you go to him to pray for you, he's going to pray in Islam. He is going to say, inshallah, finish. He's not going to say anything else. So we have all these controversies. And I want to emphasize that there will be a need for concerted effort to facilitate boldness. We cannot shy away from this problem. We cannot shy away from this problem. I've seen a Christian Oba got on the throne now for 3 years. The Afobajers, the Ilu didn't want to speak to him because he didn't want to go through the Ikwebi. There are certain traditional rights that goes with being a monarch. Or are we going to scrap monarchy? If we are going to hold on to the leadership of our monarchs, we have to facilitate a comfortable position for Ishembaye, for Ifa, for Orisha in the Yoruba state. Right now, I would say the religion, quotes, of any Yoruba state has to be Orisha. Has to be the state religion. It cannot be in the corner. And we cannot, I can't see how secularism is going to work. It hasn't worked so far. It has not worked. A lot of our children who are born into Yoruba, well, let me go back. When it's time to have what they call Yoruba marriages, they will call it engagement, foolish talk. Yep. They say, we are doing traditional engagement. And they will put down kola nut, they'll put down orogo, they'll put down this and that. And they don't seem to understand that is already an ancestral marriage, a traditional marriage. Yep. They don't. We have to allow people who just want that to be able to have legal status same way as those who go to church or those who go to court. So there are many fundamental, potentially difficult, conflicting beliefs that we need to find a way through. Should the identity of Yoruba nation be one of secularism, where there's room for Christians, there's room for Muslims, there's room for this, and everybody's allowed to follow their own religion. I'm not saying it shouldn't be the way. But if that is the way, I've given an example. If a mother or a father in his lifetime was a member of Ogboni, and it is time to do Ogboni rights, we should be able to take the children to court to remove them. Because their belief must not impose itself on their mother. Mother and father, mother and children. No husband should be allowed to prevent the wife going to the rights. If she was Ogboni and she was alive, where were you, children? Where were you? And when it's time for her to go and there's Ogboni rights necessary, it should be done. Failure to allow it, they should be taken to court and removed. The rights of children after the death of their biological parents must be put under checks, because we are individuals. You choose to be born again. When you die, go and do born again funeral. If your mother was Ogboni and entered into the faith, it must be allowed to proceed. And the court must back it to remove those children of the tarmac, for want of a better word. And again, if an Oba was until his departure was a practicing Christian, and it's time for the Oba to join his ancestors. If there's anybody trying to stop the Christian rights for that Oba, the same thing should be made possible. Remove them and go to court. So therefore, if you don't want a Christian Oba, don't even put them on the throne. But if you retain a Christian Oba or a Muslim Oba on the throne, when it is time for that Oba to join his ancestors, his belief must be given a legislative backup. And as I said, if there's a mother who was involved in anything that the children don't agree with, they should be legally removed too, and the rights imposed, because that's the right of the mother, not theirs. So, if you've just joined me, I am Erelu Twashe. Erelu Ajimu. This program is called Agbakonitonile Oodua. I share the topic we have been exploring has roots in finding a way forward. Yeah, those of you who've been clamoring for Oduduwa Nation, Yoruba Nation, Oduduwa Nation, Yoruba Nation, please don't sit there. I think we are just going to come off Nigerian Nation, and then we'll continue business as usual, where the Christians dominate, where the Muslims dominate, where the traditionalists don't have any recognition. Equality of opportunity must be a way forward. Otherwise, let us stay inside the contraptment or contraption. Let's stay there and wallow in our palaver. Let me see who else has just joined me. Oh, let's see. There's a gentleman who has just joined me. Alagbade Bayo, ṣé ẹ ṣẹ̀ṣẹ̀ dé bá mi lálejò ní, ṣé ẹ ti gbọ́ gbogbo àwọn nǹkan tí mo sọ, ṣé ẹ̀yin náà fẹ́ bá wa sọ sí? Welcome to Agbakonitonile Oduduwa. If you don't want to share your thoughts, I'm assuming you've been with us for a while and you know what the topic is. We've been looking at identity, Yoruba identity. What are the characteristics of whoever is a Yoruba? And we've also been applying that holistically, various areas, the rights of Obas, the rights of parents, the rights of children, the rights of husband, and so on and so forth. So, Alagba Adebayo, do you want to share your thoughts with us? Ekavo.
Hello?
Studio Eshe.
Hello?
Ẹ bá mi kí ara àwọn ará ilé kẹ́ ẹ bá mi júwe ara yín, ṣé Yorùbá ni yín ṣá? Kó má yẹ pé
Yorùbá ni mí o. Hello? Ṣé ń gbọ́?
Akúkú ń gbọ́ yín, à ń gbọ́ yín.
Okay. Yorùbá ni mí o. Orúkọ mi ni Pastor Raphael Adebayo láti Èjìgbò ní Ọ̀ṣun State.
Ẹ ṣeun.
So I've been following you. Very interesting. The only way to build a strong nation is to allow everyone to share their thoughts. I believe that culture is stronger than religion. So that's my own belief, that everybody's carry their culture into their belief system. So there are so many people who believe in Ifa, Shango, Oya, and for some time they change their religion from to Christianity or to Islam, but they still hold on to their culture. So I believe as we stand as a nation, Yoruba nation, everybody will be given rights to be able to practice what they believe.
without being shut down. So that is my own position.
Thank you. Let me put a question to you then. What would you say if you look at United States of America, you look at Brazil, you look at United Kingdom. Now, let's bring those experiences down to the expected Yoruba nation.
Yeah.
What should be the nature of Yoruba nation?
The nature of Yoruba nation, like in America here, is a full secular state. Everybody have a right to practice their religion. They don't stop you from worshiping what you want to worship. Even right now, they have allowed even the gay and lesbian to practice what they believe. So I believe in the new Yoruba nation, everyone must be allowed to practice what they believe. Because if the belief of anyone is suppressed, then they can't be who they want to be. They'll be revolt. But if people now can decide, I want to be a Muslim, I want to be a Christian, I want to practice my Sango, I want to practice my Oya without being stopped, then their ingenuity, who they are created to be, will come out. Because we, human beings, we are a dynamic creature. We move from level to level based on our spiritual development or our mind development. So I believe Yoruba nation, and let me say this: Yorubas, we are very deep. We are highly spiritual. Our thoughts are very deep. That is where that anywhere we go, we make a difference. The Muslim North have thought that for a Yoruba man to become a Muslim, then they will not be able to express themselves. That is a disappointment the Fulanis or the Muslim North have witnessed for many years. But for the fact that I'm a Muslim does not throw away my culture. For the fact that I'm a Christian does not throw away my culture. And that is what the Muslim North have experienced. And up to now, they have no trust in any kind of Muslim from the West or from the South. Because they were not able to be indoctrinated to forget themselves. So I believe a Yoruba nation, it will be a nation that will be organically developed once we give ourselves a right to be who we are created to be.
Thank you. If you've just joined me on YouTube or Facebook, it's another episode of Agbakuni Tonile Odudua, and today we are looking at who is a Yoruba person. What are the characteristics of a Yoruba person? What should be the component? What should be the identity of a nation that would be called Odudua Nation or Yoruba Nation? I'm going to ask one final question in terms of identity of a Yoruba nation. We established that Yorubaness dates back to the time when Odudua arrived in Ife. And if we all agree that Odudua historically is the owner of Yoruba nation, I want to ask this question: what should be the nature of the government? When Odudua was alive, I don't recall they were voting. I don't recall they had PDP or DDS or SSS. I don't recall. Should we have the baby that we're hoping to be delivered to our nation? Should we allow should we allow election to have a position within the Yoruba nation? Should our leaders be subjected to Western identity. Western identity. Partisan politics doesn't belong to us. Electing senators doesn't belong to us. Electing House of Reps doesn't belong to us. Electing somebody called a president. In fact, is election alien to Yoruba nation? Many would say it's not, because I've come across that many Yoruba organizations, they struggle with the method of choosing their leaders. Some will say we select, we don't elect. I know for a fact that it's been an issue within Yoruba Council of Elders, both in Nigeria and the one I was party to Europe and America, this issue of selection and election. So let me put the question to you. Which one will befit the true identity of Yoruba nation, election or selection? Over to you.
Shall I have a go?
Please go ahead. Yes, have a go.
Societies are by nature dynamic. We can't look to the past and copy the past into two. We must evolve. There are things in the way in which we get our political leaders now that are wasteful and disagreeable. The cost of politics in Nigeria, and by extension, the Dudua nation, if we create it and carry on with business as usual, the cost is prohibitive. Therefore, it knocks against the idea of the election the way we practice it now. However, it doesn't mean election is discredited. The way we do our election is what is disagreeable. On the other hand, even the processes by which people emerged in the past, even when you consult IFA, there is the possibility that IFA may choose somebody. But even before IFA chooses anybody, there will be processes of aggregation. We need to come to that point where we identify what our priorities are. If our priority is to give everybody an opportunity to show what they can do with their potential, and then we choose X person to go lead in a particular role because we think they'll be able to do well, we would then have to fashion the kind of process that would allow that to emerge. But I would say to go back to a practice where somebody, by reason of birth alone, emerges as a leader is, from historical experience, wasteful. If you have somebody that is brilliant who emerges as a monarch, you are lucky. If an imbecile is born into the line of accession and it becomes the monarch, you are in trouble. So we should tie ourselves down to a possibility that somebody who is not responsible, even though he's a prince, then automatically becomes the one in charge of our life.
Can I stop you there?
That is one of... Yes,
I'm going to stop you there because you're already reflecting what doesn't represent the orthodox. I have told many people who say they are princess or princes today that we never had any such ancestry. In the olden days, we had those who were responsible for establishment of an area. In terms of a monarch, we relied on Ifa. Ifa, when the throne is vacant, we consult Ifa. Ifa will say, if a madman enter the town today, make that person a monarch. Ifa will tell us that. Ifa will say, if somebody was coming and is hungry and needs food, and that person asks for a bar, that is your monarch. The spirits used to, monarchs used to come into area as independent people brought into the area. brought into the area. There's nothing called if you happen to be the daughter of, if you happen to be the son of a person who is a king next time, that is white man's system. White man's system. Okay. That is why we have problems in Yoruba land. For instance, I won't shy away from it. Oromiyan was a grandson of Oduduwa. Oromiyan. So if we use the logic of today, all descendants of Oromiyan should be able to become an Oni. Oromiyan was Oni. Oromiyan became Oni. But it doesn't happen in Ife. So at the end of the day, it's all white man stuff. Just all white man stuff. Totally white man stuff. Because it's the white man, they have their own lineage. And it's very clear. Let me not generalize. As far as England is concerned, only the first child of the first child of the first child of the first child of the first child that can ascend the throne. So you have the first to the heir, first to the throne, second to the throne. As far as what we have in Yoruba land is concerned today is white man's system. I repeat, it's white man's system. Any fool can be brought by the spirit of unknown, and if I says that is your king, that is your king. Simple. So there's no blood affair there. So that is why many people who are still part of Ife cannot naturally say they can just go and become part of the lineage. So let's move on and answer the question that I ask you. And that question is about election. We had our own democratic system. It's by consensus. By consensus, right? That's more. That brings cohesion. And if you're talking about, we shouldn't go back to what it used to be. There are many countries that experience colonialism. And when the white man left, they went back to the ancestral traditions. And they've done well. Qatar is seen as the richest country in the world. It's absolute monarchy. They don't vote. And they're doing well. Now, if you go to United Arab Emirates, it's a mixture of, but they don't vote. Now, I agree with you. Yoruba land probably is very different because many Yoruba indigenes are more westernized than those who they spend their life with. And many of them in their brains, they can really switch to what they've ever known. So I agree with you, most of them cannot imagine. They cannot imagine a situation where there's no election. The madness of running around, dancing. And let me remind you, all those who put forward candidates, the women's leader, the men's leader, everybody connected with all these selection process and election process, they go to Ifa. They go to Ifa. They do it to two. They do that back door. Anybody who wants to be chosen, and Ifa has told the person, you are going to become governor, they go and do it to two. They've never left Isheshe out of it, all of them. They don't. They don't go to church and say, pray for me only. They go to Isheshe. So we need to strike a balance. Are we going to go for this Western system, which so far has left us with 60 years of failure to have 365 days of uninterrupted electricity? 60 years. When we were young, water was on the street corner. People, they line up. They go, those of us who have water in the house, they come and get water. Now, you have to go and do, borehole. Absolute failure. Absolute failure. So, let's come to terms with what we are faced with. Perhaps even an 80-year-old cannot remember a government not elected. I don't believe anybody who is even 80 years old now can say they remember a time when the governors of different areas of Nigeria, they were not elected. They were not elected. They were just sent to us. They were not sent to us. They were just sent to us. Here's the governor of Western region. Here's the governor of Eastern region. They were just sent to us. We didn't elect them. Many will tell you that they had better time then than now we got elected people. You see, when they had, is it ENSA? ENSA. I was so amazed that they are running after police officers. They were not running after the elected politicians who failed to do their job. I've been appalled personally to see that the police officers who have turned to inhuman breed, paid salary, some will argue underpaid, people have gone for them and brutalized them, and they left the politicians who have not been doing their job. Who is supposed to have controlled those police officers? You are from England, I'm from England. Who has failed? Not the police officers. I'm so appalled they haven't captured all of them and tied them up somewhere until they were made to do their job or to resign. The police, in my view, no matter the way of their conduct, what happened to the elected politicians? They are the bosses of the police, are they not? They are the boss. All of them, they go and sit down in Abuja. How many times do you see them raise issue of police brutality when they stand up to speak? You live in England, I live in England. You know we have to, question time comes to Prime Minister, issues are raised. So all those police who have turned out to be beasts, yes? Is their fault? No, because in England, elected politicians will not allow police officers to become beasts. And if I want to say who has actually allowed them to have gone on brutalizing people for so many years, all those elected to serve, they are the ones that should have been maybe pulled together and locked up somewhere until they were made to understand that they failed woefully. Those are the people that should be focused upon. I get tired of seeing Nigerians focusing on people who are answerable to elected politicians. They are the ones who have failed the young people. Every one of them, from Bajabi Amila to Dino Milaye to whatever their names are. They are the ones that should have been dealt with, not the police officers. Because you know in England, no member of parliament is going to sit around whilst police are brutalizing people. So, as far as the Yoruba nation is concerned, I do hope, should we have elected politicians, that the people will understand that if anything goes wrong, those are the people they should go for. Those are the people they must go for. They are the ones who failed. Not those who provide services, not the DPO, not the constable, not the street police officer. No, the politicians. If they are not fit to do their job, they should resign. There's no point being a politician if you're not going to be bold. Name one of them who has been bold. Yoruba, you remember, we are looking at Yoruba identity. Name one Yoruba politician elected to serve in Abuja. I see Dino Milaye, usually he makes noise. Can you remember anybody else? There's one I know who used to dance like that. Somebody Adeleke, he's dancing like that. Everybody dancing. Please. Dear viewers, we are looking at what we should expect of those who will comprise of what we call Yoruba Nation. And I'm saying, if we are talking about Yoruba Nation, if we decide to have elected politicians, each time anything goes wrong, they must be dealt with. Anytime anything goes wrong, every elected politician must be dealt with. If they are not fit, they should get out, because it's their role to ensure they police those who are employed and paid for by their government. They are parts of the government. As far as the traditional government is concerned, the Oba and the Afobajes, we've seen what happened to Oba Akiolu. Everybody's asking, where were the Afobajes? The Afobajes, where were they? Where were the Afobajes? When people just went in and thrashed the palace. Where were the Afobajes? Where were the, again, I asked the question, I wonder what Sanwo-Olu has got to say about this. Sanwo-Olu is supposed to be the political representative of Oba Akiolu. He is the one that is voted, that has been voted for. And what about this Obasa? We should be asking both of them. What led to an Oba, no matter how evil people claim he has been? Obviously, the people couldn't take their anger to anywhere else other than to take it to this Oba. Well, we are only reviewing what we are going through at this point in time. My heart goes out to all those who lost their lives during this unfortunate era in the Yoruba life. One hopes that we would have learned lessons. One hopes that there wouldn't be a repeat of what we have witnessed. Brutality towards innocent, towards the youths that are angry, and of course, police officers employed to do their jobs. If police officers cannot do their jobs, it's not the police officer you have problems with. You have problems with your elected politicians. Get hold of them and deal with them. They are the ones who have caused all these worries. And if they are not fit to serve you, get them to resign. I want to come to the end of a day when we'll be looking at who is meant to be a Yoruba. You can see I'm a Yoruba, very bold. I suppose most people who know me over years know I don't shy from boldness. In any country, a Yoruba person must be bold. A Yoruba person must be confident. A Yoruba person must be able to appraise and differentiate between what is good and what is not good. A Yoruba person must understand justice. I have just highlighted justice. Was it just to thrash the police officers and not the politicians you voted for? Paid, God knows God how much they are paid. And they sit in Abuja whilst the police officers were brutalizing you. Justice must be done. Because at the end of the day, if the people in Abuja could hide themselves away in Abuja, and the DPO couldn't hide himself away at the local level, and the governor could hide himself away, and the Oba Akiolu couldn't hide himself away, there's one thing Yoruba always do. They recognize when what should have happened has failed to happen. Let's hope that the new Yoruba nation will be made up of Yoruba citizens who will learn to recognize where to point their guns. And I don't mean AK-47, no. I mean, when it's time to give them what they deserve, please sit down and think very well before you start throwing stones to those who are meant to be accountable to those who fail to ensure accountability. A Yoruba nation must be accountable. I want to thank you, my dear Alagba Abayomi Ogunlolu, my dear Alagba Abba Christy Lolu I want to thank you for joining me today. I want to particularly recognize your style, your Omoluabi style, your Akpele style. Yoruba always think of others first and themselves last. And each time you were opening up Yoruba world by enabling us to see other ways of thinking. Seeing the future. Yorubas, we are futuristic people. That's why we always talk to Ifa. You want to know what is going to happen in the future. We don't sit around. If you're a Yoruba person and you don't go and consult Ifa to find out where you're meant to be next year, and you're sitting around there until something just falls on you, you're not a Yoruba. Even when they go to Aladura church and they kneel before Aladura, they are looking for somebody to do vision. When they go to Redeem Church, Baba Adeboye will say, and somebody is down there and something's going to happen. That's why they all congregate there. So Yorubas are futuristic people. I am praying and hoping that the future will become clearer, that will become more knowledgeable of who we are meant to be as Yoruba people, that will become more sensitive not just to the needs of ourselves. Lord, my ko yọ wá nínú ìwà ìmọ̀tara ẹnìkan will cease to be materialistic. Yoruba people are not materialistic people. Àwa kan bẹ́ẹ̀nbẹ́ẹ́ náà fi káṣọ sí ìgbà tá à ń lọlé ọkọ bẹ́ẹ̀nbẹ́ẹ́. Nísìnyí kí náà fi ń kó sí nísìnyí wọ́n fi portmanteau náà fi ń kó bẹ́ẹ̀nbẹ́ẹ́. I still have my own bẹ́ẹ̀nbẹ́ẹ́. Bembe, I'm sure some people don't know what Bembe is. Now, we're not materialistic people. No. Yorubas are so materialistic now, it's beyond belief. When we were young, tí èèyàn bá ń jó, kọ́bọ̀ náà máa fi síwájú onílù, kọ́bọ̀, àbí kíní kan, kò tiẹ̀ sí pépà, kọ́bọ̀, àní onílù máa ṣe dáadáa. But nísìnyí, they will go and empty the bank. Yoruba people, aláyọ̀ ni wá, ojoojúmọ́ la máa ń yọ̀, ṣùgbọ́n ìwà tán wà lọ́wọ́lọ́wọ́ báyìí doesn't represent the true identity of Yoruba people. Our behavior right now doesn't represent what we Yoruba people should be. Àwọn Yorùbá wọn máa ń fi àdúrà parí ọ̀rọ̀ wọn ní wọ́n ní gbogbo èròǹgbà wa lórí pé bó ṣe lè dáa fún ìran Ọ̀fẹ́ Oòduà. Olódùmarè jẹ́ kó rí bẹ́ẹ̀. Gbogbo bá ṣe ń fẹ́ ìrọ̀rùn là ń wá o. Yorùbá kì í wówó. Ìrọ̀rùn ni Yorùbá ń wá. Yorùbá kì í wówó, owó ni Yorùbá ń wá. Owó ló ń dowó. Ṣùgbọ́n Yorùbá sì máa lọ gọ́rùn Ọlọ́run. Àná ń wówó, a máa tanra wọn jẹ. Olódùmarè kó ṣe kíni, kó dáríjì wá torí Ìdúfà sọ fún Olódùmarè ló dẹ́ṣẹ̀. Ló dá ìdáríjì. Ó ní kò fi àwọn méjèèjì hanra wọn. Ó ní tí a bá rí ẹ̀ṣẹ̀, ìdáríjì ò lè dé. Tá a bá dẹ̀ rí ìdáríjì, ohun rere, ohun gbogbo ní rẹ̀ kò ní jẹ́ tiwa. Wọ́n wá ṣe lẹ́yìn ìwúre gbogbo ẹ̀yin tẹ̀ ń wò mí. Wọ́n ní níre là ń sọ̀rọ̀ àtàrí o. Níre ni kò máa sọ̀rọ̀ yín. Wọ́n ní ojú wa yìí náà. Ojú Yorùbá ní ojú kì í rí bí. Ojú yín ò ní rí bí. Wọ́n wá ní gíga là ń bọ́jọ́. Kò sígbà tí Yorùbá ò ga. Orúkọ wa lásán ga. Àwa fúnra wa ga. Gíga là ń bọ́jọ́. Gíga là máa bá ìran Ọ̀fẹ́ Oòduà. Wọ́n ní ìgbẹ́nu léegi ẹ má gùn. Àwa ìran Ọ̀fẹ́ Oòduà. Aláṣẹgbáyì, aláṣeyege, aláṣeyọ, ó ńlá máa ṣe. Èyí tí mo wí yẹn, mo fi sí kọ́nà Heritage TV. Kó rí bẹ́ẹ̀ fún yín o. Mo fi sí kọ́nà ọmọọba Adéyínká Adédoyin, kó rí bẹ́ẹ̀, kó ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀. Mo fi sí kọ́nà Pásítọ̀ Adébáyọ̀, kó rí bẹ́ẹ̀, kó ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀. Ọláwálé, mo fi sí tiẹ̀ náà nílùú Germany, kó rí bẹ́ẹ̀, kó ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀. Dáyọ̀, kó rí bẹ́ẹ̀, kó ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀. Àtẹ̀yin tẹ́ ń wò mí ní gbogbo àgbáláyé, ẹ bá ti náwó sí owó yẹn á máa tó. Mo wá ṣe pábánbárì, mo wá lọ sọ́dọ̀ Lákàyè Ọ̀ṣìmọ́lẹ̀ onílé kọ́ngùn ọ̀nà ọ̀run. Olómílé fẹ̀jẹ̀wẹ̀ ogun yé ogun lolú ló ń jẹ́, ogun bá máa lànà fún ẹ. ní gbogbo ọjọ́ gbogbo Azeez mi ò gbàgbé ẹ nínú Mauritania Ògún ni mo fi ṣàdúrà fún ẹ torí pé mi ò fi Kristo olùṣẹ́ Ògún ni a máa lànà fún ẹ torí olùlànà lógún jẹ́ kí n parí ẹ̀ pé lórúkọ Jésù yẹn tún kọ́ kò sí ìtì ò bá wa lára mu àwa ìrọ̀fẹ́ Oòduà torí pé ó di dandan àpètán là ń pè tèmi dire ọwọ́ á tó gbogbo èrè tá à ń fẹ́ mo Azeez èrè lọ́la yà ń jẹ́ o ibi tó wà àtòjò owó àtìrè nílùú Mauritania wàá rí kó ìyàwó kẹ̀ wọ́n ní ọmọ làwọn fi gbẹ́jọ́ wà níyàwó wà bímọ lájú ẹ̀ sílẹ̀ dáadáa o má lọ fàlàṣù kan oṣù oníyàwó kan mẹ́fà ni mo gbàdúrà fún ẹ orí bẹ́ẹ̀ kó ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀ I want to thank every one of you who have joined me this day, a day when we've been looking at the identity of anyone who wants to associate or be known as a Yoruba. Ilẹ̀ Yorùbá ò ní bàjẹ́ o. Àwa jẹ́ pé ibi tá a bá dé wọ́n ní ibẹ̀ náà ní kí n fi àdàgbà ètò yìí kí n fi kọ́ sí. Mo fi kọ́ ni o, mo tún máa rí lọ́jọ́ tí ò pẹ́ sísàn yìí torí pé ó di dandan pé èmi ni màá máa wá. Ẹ̀yin náà lè máa gbà mí tọwọ́ tẹsẹ̀. Wọ́n wá nítorí kíni nítorí wípé gbogbo àwọn ìgbárùmọ̀lẹ̀ tí wọ́n ní àwọn làwọn nífẹ̀ẹ́ Oòduà wọ́n ló di dandan kó dáa fún wa wọ́n láwọn ti tú orílẹ̀-èdè tí ò wúlò wọ́n láwọn ti túká wọ́n ní ìrọ̀rùn lẹ́jà fi ń gbénu odò ìrọ̀rùn ní tiwa tó kórí bẹ́ẹ̀ kó ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀ tó ẹ̀yin ẹ̀yọ́ mi I want to say thank you so much for joining me today and to you all I say a very big thank you. Thank you very much once again to my guest speaker Alàgbà Abba Christy Lolu. Thank you for joining me, and I look forward to another opportunity in not too distant a future. So, to the studio, I say a big thank you and good evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Ẹ̀pẹ̀lẹ́mà ẹ kú ohun ẹ kú àtàárọ̀.
Studio, where are you? Mr. Thomas, want to yọ wá kúrò ní ẹ̀ ní I hope so anyway.
Okay.
Ẹ ṣé alàgbà, I hope I enjoy ètò wa.
I did, ẹ ṣé ma. Thank you very much.
There'll be another opportunity.
Amen. Thank you.
Studio, where are you? I'm waiting. Go to Ale. I can still see him here.
Yeah.
Everybody in London, have you heard that Heritage Television has come up with something new? All your functions and celebrations can now be multi-camera live stream that was only reserved for the rich and famous. Having a function in London can be viewed clean and clear immediately from any part of the world. Trust Heritage TV to give you a better reach. Heritage Television also does photography that will make you the envy of all your friends and family. Heritage Television is the best. All your functions like birthdays, funerals, weddings, church anniversaries or harvest. Heritage Television is the master. We are in the heart of London with an ultra-modern equipped studio. You can call us on 020 800 46100 or email us info@heritagetv.co.uk or mobile 0734 1234 560. Heritage Television will do you proud.